Green Harbor Waterfront Lodging is nestled in a woodland setting on a picturesque ocean inlet. Green Harbor offers so much for a fun-filled yet affordable family waterfront vacation. Enjoy our private boating beach with ramp and dock, free rowboats and paddle boats, oversized heated outdoor pool and kiddie pool. You'll enjoy our attractive waterfront and beachside accommodations. So visit us online at gogreenharbor.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, November 18, 2013 meeting of the Falmouth Board of Selectmen. I invite you all to rise and join the board as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brent Putnam. I'm chairman of the Board of Selectmen. To my left is Selectman Mary Pat Flynn and Town Manager Julian Suso. To my right, Vice Chair Doug Jones, Selectman Kevin Murphy, and Selectman Rebecca Moffett. If you have a cell phone or some other device that might spontaneously make noise this evening, we ask that you turn it off or silence it during your time with us. If you choose to make a comment, if you'd like to participate in the deliberations and discussions tonight, there will be opportunities for public comment. We ask that you wait to be recognized by the chair. When you are recognized, please come to the lectern, identify yourself for the record. We may know who you are, but that doesn't mean that our recording secretary or the folks at home do. We ask that you direct all comments and questions to the chair, and please adhere to our speaker's policy, a copy of which is on the door entering the room here. If you'd like to record this meeting, you are required to notify the board if you're recording via audio. If you wish to if you wish to record video, you will be required to get permission from the board. Is there anyone at this time who'd like to announce an audio recording or wishes to get permission for video recording? All right. And with that, we'll move into the first item on our agenda, or the second, which is the announcements. Ms. Flynn, you have an announcement?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. About 2 years ago, some of you may remember that we had a young man here who came before us with a project. His name is Jake Barry, and at the time he was 15 years old, and he had worked on a project to improve the playground at the Swift Playground in West Falmouth. And he was going to raise funds and improve the ball fields and improve the area where young children, very young children, can climb rocks and swing and all sorts of things. So he came and asked us if we would support him, because this is public land, the playground, and we said absolutely we would. And he is now 18 years old. He raised $42,000. The playground was dedicated last month on West Falmouth Day. It's absolutely beautiful. And last week, the philanthropy partners of the Cape and Islands held their Distinguished Service Award luncheon in Hyannis. And each year they give out 5 awards: for business, for the volunteer, for a youth award, and for outstanding philanthropic award. And Jake Barry received the youth award from the philanthropy partners of the Cape and Islands. And I thought that was really exciting for him. He was there. They do a video. He spoke of his meeting with the Board of Selectmen. He spoke of the project. He spoke of all the support that he had, not only from the town, from the selectmen, but from the community as well. So I just thought it would be nice for everyone to know that he really was honored for all the work he did. And being only 15, we all thought that was pretty good. Thank you.
I'd also like to recognize Jay Zavala, Chairman of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, under the summary of actions, we're asking your approval of the 50th Annual Christmas Parade. And as a part of that, a Holiday by the Sea weekend, I wanted to highlight a couple of the events that are taking place. It starts on December the 6th and runs through December the 8th with the parade. I've highlighted only 4 of these, but there's so many. This year, for the first time, we have a holiday tea and fashion show at the Woods Hole Golf Club in the early afternoon from 2:30 to 5:30, and that's sponsored by the Atria Senior Living. Later on Saturday, we have Seafaring Santa sailing into Falmouth Harbor. This year, we're going to move him over a little bit and get him over to the Bandshell, so that we'll have an opportunity to get the second annual Jingle Jog and Elf Run off to a great start. And finally, as a highlight, the Main Street and Queens Byway stroll on Saturday evening, and throughout that entire event, we'll also have the lighting of the village green. So they all mark a success in the past, and we've enhanced them all. We've created this beautiful 8-page brochure that you'll find in the Falmouth Enterprise and then in the Upper Cape newspapers. And it's 8 pages detailing all of the specifics of the events, those of the Chamber, those of the Falmouth Village Association, and those of our members. Our hope here is to create an opportunity not only for our accommodations industry, but also for our retailers and for our restaurateurs and other members of the Chamber that can take full advantage of the holidays. In closing, I would mention that the details are also on our website, and will be in the next edition of Coastlines that'll be published on the first Tuesday in December. We also want to urge all of the parade participants who are languishing to rush their applications in this week. This is our last week to do so. We're not going to turn anybody away, but we will have to just add them to the end of the parade. And hopefully that'll take care of it. How's my timing on this?
Very good.
Not bad, huh? I'm getting the hang of this. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any questions? You're good?
Any other announcements?
And we'll see you all in the parade.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other announcements from the board or from the town manager's office?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
All right. And with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the fiscal year 2014 tax classification hearing. In accordance with the requirements of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56, the Board of Selectmen will hold a fiscal 2014 property tax classification hearing this evening. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the percentages of the FY 2014 tax levy to be borne by each class of taxable real and personal property. All persons interested may appear this evening. Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're joined tonight by Finance Director Jennifer Petit and Assessor Tricia Favuli. We welcome their being with us. I think Jennifer is going to kick off the presentation.
Thank you. Jennifer Petit, Finance Director. I just wanted to give a quick overview. When we set our tax rate every year, we take our last 3 town meetings since the last time we set our tax rate, and particularly our budget, and submit our revenues and our appropriations. And I just wanted to, so this is really the end of that process when we set the tax rate with the Department of Revenue. I just wanted to add that in my presentation with the new Silver Beach sewer betterments, I had a recommendation of leaving at least $200,000 in the excess tax levy, which I have. And then the sheet that you'll be signing tonight, the excess tax levy is $212,000. So I just wanted to report on that.
Good evening, Board. The Board of Assessors met 2 weeks ago and have several recommendations for you. You have in your packet the information that they put together, and your choices are as followed. They're offering a choice of a split tax rate, and by doing that, we would shift the burden of the higher tax rate to the commercial, industrial, and personal property versus the residential rate. That would be the choice of doing the split, and I believe in your packet you also got that we put in it the percentages of the rate. The commercial, industrial, and personal property rate, if we would choose a split tax rate, would go to $12.23 per thousand, and the residential rate would go down to $7.81 per thousand. Your second option would be a residential exemption. In fiscal 14, this amount would be an exemption of $96,000 on individual properties that consider them their domicile. They would have to register with the town and fill out proper applications to serve that is their domicile. Rental properties would be excluded, as would commercial properties, and anything over $825,000 would also be excluded on that exemption. If we were to choose that exemption, we would anticipate a large amount of people applying to that, so it would affect our staff. Your third choice would be a small business exemption, and that would be for any business exemptions within the town of Falmouth that have 10 or fewer employees. That's probably half of the small business, commercial businesses that we have in the town, restaurants and landscapers and self-service type restaurants, of that nature. And if we did not split the tax rate, that would not even come into the equation. An open space exemption, the selectmen may offer a discount up to 75% to land identified by the Board of Assessors as open space. Currently, that's less than 3% of the property that we have in the town. The board looked at it and considered the analysis and the fiscal impact within those classes. And the Board of Assessors are recommending that we stay with a factor of 1, which is 1 single tax rate, as we have in the past. With a small amount of commercial businesses and with the economy as what it has been in the last number of years, they feel that that would be their recommendation to split with that so that we don't shift a burden into any of the commercial properties.
Questions from the board?
Do you have any questions?
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public who have a question or a comment? Okay.
Would you
Hearing
say-
none?
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Would you just say one more time what your recommendation?
Their recommendation would be that they would tax all classes at the same rate by adapting a factor of 1, which would be one single tax rate. We would not split the tax rate. And the tax rate would be $8.15 per thousand.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, motion to close the hearing?
I move we close the hearing.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous.
I'll just need a motion from you to accept that.
Okay, how would the board like to proceed?
I'd make a motion that we adopt a factor of 1 for our tax rate.
And reject
We
the
have one
residential,
here.
commercial, and open space exemption.
That's correct.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
just need your signatures this evening, if you would please, so that we can submit this for the morning.
Excuse me, Trish, what was the tax rate that?
$8.15.
Okay.
Next item on our agenda, we have the minutes of the public session, November 4, 2013, excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of the minutes of November 4th, 2013.
Second?
I have one
we have some
correction.
corrections.
I just have an addition on page 2, where it says, Selectman Flynn commented on the Joint Land Use Planning Council and the importance of finding ways to share services, and I would like to say, and asked the state representatives for their support of the military bond bill. I'd just like to add that. Thank you.
Any other corrections, additions? Can we amend the motion then?
So moved.
Second?
All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as amended. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. And then we have the executive session for November 4, 2013.
I move the minutes of the executive session of November 4th, 2013, and released to the public because they've been voted by town meeting, I believe,
Second?
except for page 2.
All right, so
I guess we can't do that. So
I think there are several parts of
I will withdraw
this.
that motion.
Okay.
Move to approve and not release.
There is one motion that I don't think it was totally articulated right. It was to forward to the Finance Committee, period. It was, I don't think there was any additional,
What do you mean?
just the,
So on page 2, the motion, forward to the Finance Committee, period.
right.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. I would second that.
Okay. So a motion and a second to accept the minutes as amended and not released to the public. All right. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous.
Is there a way that the minutes come back to us without the third item on it, so we can release partial, or is it only release the entire?
That's a good question.
If I might comment, Mr. Chairman, just in general, by experience, it becomes very unwieldy
Okay.
to release part of it because of the obvious difficulties in editing and
Okay.
truncating things. So I recommend against it for that reason. Thank you.
All right, and we have the summary of actions.
Mr. Chairman, before we begin on the summary actions, I'd like to disclose that I'm a holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Chair, if I could also disclose on, I don't think I need to recuse myself, but I plan to run in the Chase the Turkey race in I hope that does not conflict with any approval of the Chase the Turkey Race in item number 2.
I wouldn't think so,
Well, thank you.
especially if you're the turkey.
All right, I'm going to read through these, and if anyone would like to hold them, please let me know. Item number 1, request for a special event, 50th Annual Falmouth Christmas Parade, Falmouth Chamber of Commerce, December 8, 2013. Item 2, request for special event, Chase the Turkey Race, Falmouth Academy, B.B. Woods, November 28, 2013. Item number 3, request for one-day liquor license, Falmouth Garden Club fundraiser, Brick Kiln Farm, December 3, 2013. Item number 4, request for agricultural liquor license, Westport Rivers, Mahoney's Winter Farmers Markets. Item number 5, payment from Recreation Department donation account, Pina Charter Bus, $1,400. Item number 6, consent to refinance 11 Bailey Drive. Item number 7, request for off-premises signs, Waldorf School of Cape Cod, Holiday Fair.
Hold.
Okay. We will hold number 7. Item number 8, vote to support pursuit of combined dispatch and authorize town manager to sign CIC contract.
I move our summary of action items 1 through 6 and 8.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Ms. Moffett, you held number 7.
Yes, is there someone here from the Waldorf School of Cape Cod? Okay.
My name is Karen Schwalbe, and I'm a parent at the Waldorf School of Cape Cod.
And I think you're holding what I wanted to say.
That is it.
Okay. And it is November 23rd, so those will be up for,
From Tuesday through Saturday
okay.
this week.
That's from you, okay.
You want to make a motion?
Oh, I'll make the motion that for the off-premise signs from the Waldorf School of Cape Cod be accepted.
Second?
All right, motion and a second for item number 7. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. And that brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is a liquor license hearing, an application for transfer of ownership of an all-alcoholic package store license to Falmouth Wines and Spirits LLC, doing business as John's Liquor Store, 729 Main Street. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the general laws as amended that Falmouth Wines and Liquors LLC, doing business as John's Liquor Store, has applied for a transfer of ownership on an all-alcoholic package store license located at 729 Main Street, Falmouth, Massachusetts. Hearing to be held this evening. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative present?
Attorney Edward Candy, representing the petitioner.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is Mark Ferrera, who is the owner. This one is fairly easy. All it is a transfer into an LLC by the partnership that controlled it earlier. There's no other changes, no pledges of stock, no loans, nothing whatsoever.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
I'll move approval. Or you want to close the hearing?
Yeah, we'll want to close the hearing first. This being a hearing, if there's anyone in the public who wishes to ask questions or comments, now's your time. Okay. Last questions or comments from the board? All right, before we close, I do just want to make the board aware of one thing. We did receive a letter, from another licensee, Falmouth Wine and Spirits Incorporated, and they're concerned about the confusion between the two names. And Counselor, I'm not sure if perhaps you can educate me a little bit. Does Massachusetts law allow two names to be so similar?
Yes, it does. In fact, I ran a check through the Secretary of State's office on the LLC and the corporation, and normally they would kick that right back and say it's refused. In this case, nothing came back and it was allowed.
Okay.
However, she and Mark are both friends, So I made a suggestion to Mark that to clear up any confusion in case it was ever sold in the future, we would stipulate with her in writing that we could not use her name in any way. And I think that would take care of any problem that she might consider.
Mr. Murphy?
One other quick question through you, Counselor. Is the DBA, John, still going to be used?
Yes.
So there
Yeah, it's
wouldn't be...
it's been in use for 60 years, and
Okay.
there's no intention of
So
changing.
the other one is Falmouth Wine and Spirits. This is just the corporation name, so the DBA would differentiate as well.
That's correct.
Continue to be John's. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
I move approval.
Second?
Let's close the hearing first, folks.
Oh, I thought you did.
No. Okay, so a motion to close, please.
Move to close the hearing?
Second?
Okay, motion and a second to close the hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? All right, motion is closed, or excuse me, hearing is closed. A little off my game tonight. All right, how would the
We're
board
in a
like to
hurry.
proceed?
I move approval of this.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the license,
transfer.
the transfer of license. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
This is the cover page for that. All right, next on our agenda, we have another liquor license hearing. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that OSLJ Spirits LLC, doing business as Ocean State Job Lot, has applied for a new Section 15 wine and malt package store license located at 50 T-Ticket Highway, Falmouth, Massachusetts. Hearing to be held this evening. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here this evening? Please come to the lectern.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Beth O'Neill. I'm an attorney representing the applicant. And with me this evening is Brad Smith. He is the intended manager of the licensed premises if granted. And what I do have for the board this evening is an affidavit with respect to the notice, if I might submit that now, please.
Thank you.
And I believe that the application materials are in good order, so that all the paperwork that was required to be filed is before you in the package that we filed back in late October. But I thought it would be appropriate or important to tell you a bit about how Ocean State Job Lot would intend to exercise the license if it is granted. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Ocean State Job Lot store on Route 28. The hours, or the days of the week and the hours of the store are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., and Sunday, 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. So the sale of alcohol, just the beer and wine, it would be intended that they would be sold during all of those hours, with the exception, of course, on Sunday, when the alcohol cannot be sold until noontime. And what the intended licensee would propose to do is to set up Tensa barriers to cordon off, if you will, the area where the beer and wine will be sold from, and also use signage to let folks know that they cannot access the area or purchase the beer and wine until noontime on Sunday. We did provide a copy of floor plans, and you can see from the floor plans that the intended area where the beer and wine is to be sold is 100 square feet, and it's located adjacent to where other food products, if you will, are sold. Coffee and tea, cereal, breakfast products. So it's a 100 square foot area that will be compatibly located within the store. Now, primarily, what the intended licensee is intending to sell are private label wines. I'm sure you're all familiar with Trader Joe's, and they sell what's been fondly referred to as two-buck chuck. Well, Ocean State Job Lot would attempt to have a private label wine and sell that. Also, overstock of beer, It will be displayed on either shelves or pallets. There will be no coolers, so no one can purchase cold beer. So it's really intended to be beer and wine at off-price pricing, as Ocean State Job Lot is famous for. The employees who will work the registers, none of them will be less than 18 years of age. The cashiers will be trained on liquor sales and protocol to verify the ages, with one exception. All of the presumptive types of ID that is permitted by mass law will be the only forms of ID that Ocean State Job Lot will accept. The one exception relates to an out-of-state driver's license. And what the cashiers will be trained on is they will have a booklet at the store that's called the ID Checking Guide, and that defines or describes what an out-of-state license looks like or should look like, and any other identifying indicia that's on the license. That will be available, and then the store will also employ a backlight device so that they can put the IDs under the backlight device to make sure that what is being presented is legitimate and valid. Mr. Smith is the manager of the store presently. He's been there for approximately 16 months. He lived in Falmouth for about 20 years, although he now lives in Wareham. And he used to be the manager of the Ocean State Job Lot store in Buzzards Bay for about 5 years. And he's been with the company for approximately 12 years. I did some research on other retailers that actually have secured beer and wine licenses or all alcoholic beverage licenses, because I thought perhaps the board would be interested in knowing what other types of retailers have licenses to sell alcohol. And I have made a list up. It's not comprehensive, but as you will see, quite a few retailers sell beer and wine or all alcoholic beverages, including BJ's, Walmart, Costco, and other types of retailers such as that. So we're looking for a beer and wine license. It will be exercised during somewhat limited hours. The product that will be sold is primarily limited product, and it's a 100 square foot retail space for the beer and wine.
Questions from the board? Ms. Moffett?
I think when I was reading through this, and I'm picturing, and I looked at the floor plan.
Yes.
As, will that back wall be, does the sale of the beer and wine go up to that back wall where the food and the spices and all of that? Or are you breaking through there to go over to the next building? Is it self-contained the way it is right now?
It's already in the building, it's part of the building. Are you familiar with the store
Okay,
at all?
sure thing.
Excuse me, if you could just come to the microphone, please. Folks at home can't hear you without that.
So if you're familiar with the store at all, where the
Yes.
clothing department is directly on the other side of that, facing the houseware side of the store?
Yes.
Okay, so that can be cordoned off there. So it's almost its own separate aisle.
Okay, so it doesn't really go into any part of the next building?
No, not at all.
Okay, that was, and then to just finish in saying this, I mean, this list doesn't have any Falmouth stores or anything.
You're correct.
But we are aware of saying that we know that Stop and Shop and Trader Joe's do this, and it's customary and people expect it. So when I read that, I thought about that. People do look for another place where they're shopping if they would have beer and wine, because it does happen.
The board will be taking up as a requirement a BAC training for package stores, and if we do so, would hope and expect that if we implement that policy, that your cashiers would, as well as the manager, would be trained in that same type of policy?
Certainly.
Okay. Just so the board knows, this is the last open beer and wine license that we have in this community, and it's set by population.
Any other questions from the board?
Just to report that we do have a response from Captain Reed of the police department, that they have conducted a query check on the manager, and the department has no problem with the request, and also from David Carrigan from the health department, that they have no concerns about it, since there's no food preparation going on as part of this.
Any other questions from the board? From the public, any questions or comments regarding this license application? Okay, hearing none, a motion to close the hearing?
Second, oh, so moved. I think you usually do it, I'm sorry.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any discussion on the motion?
I just wonder if it's something that we do want to wait to find out if we have public comment on this, and this is something that maybe the first people have heard about the possibility of this. And if we close the hearing, then we are making a decision tonight without the possibility for input. Maybe we're okay with that. I just want to raise that question.
But it's been duly advertised for 10 days,
You're
so,
right.
I mean,
Okay.
it's met all the requirements. So if the people who were either for or against didn't come, then,
Okay.
In actuality,
We'll take it.
that's how I first saw it, was in the newspaper.
yeah,
And
that's
it
what I
wasn't
saw
under a
too. was in the
DBA. I mean,
newspaper.
I picked it up in the newspaper before the selectmen's agenda, so I do realize that it was there.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion on the motion? All right, this is to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, how would the board like to proceed?
I'll make a motion to approve a beer and wine license with the hours stipulated. Is that 8 AM to 9 PM, Monday through Saturday?
Monday through Saturday, 8 AM till 9 PM,
And then
Sunday,
Sundays noon to
8 PM.
8 PM.
All right, we have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, next on our agenda, we have an application for a shellfish aquaculture license. The Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77, Wetland Regulations of the zoning bylaw, on a request for a shellfish aquaculture permit by Ty Perini, 24 Homer Avenue, North Falmouth, Massachusetts. Request for this permit was received on October 18, 2013, in the office of the Board of Selectmen. Hearing to be held this evening. The legal description of a shellfish aquaculture permit for one location, more specifically as follows: to grow eastern oysters in an aquaculture site of approximately 2 acres located 600 feet offshore, northeast of Fiddler's Cove entrance and northwest of Rand's Canal entrance in Megansett Harbor, with a water depth of 10 to 14 feet. A copy of the license application is on file with the Board of Selectmen. The applicant or the applicant's representative?
Sorry, should I have waited for you?
No, that's quite all right.
Ty,
Good evening.
good evening. Thank you.
So is this the beginning of your process?
It is, and I was under the impression tonight, basically just be to take the next step forward with the Division of Marine Fisheries, to get them to do their survey. And, yeah,
And it is, and it's an opportunity for the board to ask any questions if they have any, but it's a preliminary approval so you can begin the process. Any questions from the board?
Are you here before us for both the upweller as well as the
Yes,
grant?
I am. The
Okay,
upweller,
I wanted to make sure that
Right.
it was both of them, okay.
I think I had an illustration on there, but it's in Rand's Canal, just behind 175 Chester Street.
This one?
well, I just wanted to mention that Mr. Perini's been in contact with the Conservation Commission already, and we have a letter from the chairman, and actually encouraging us to begin the process. And she also mentions as well in her letter that none of the studies will be done until we approve the process and it gets underway. But we're all familiar with that because we've been dealing with this in a number of licenses recently.
To add to the letter of the Conservation Commission, we also have a letter from Chuck Martinson, Deputy Director of Marine Environment Services, saying the same thing, that to move this process forward, to actually do the research, we need you to approve this, and then we can do further study after that.
Can I just ask one question? I see we have the harbor master or the director of marine environment here. Is navigational issues taken up now, later in the process, or if there are in fact any?
The the applicant has actually made some comments in his application about marking the area, with some discussions with Chuck about just having 4 buoys marking the corners. But typically, we do address that issue through the order of conditions.
Okay, great, thank you.
Actually, I do have one question. I just wanted to, I don't know which one of you wants, and maybe you do, but in your diagram, you're showing that the, what do you call them? Will be located somewhere to the east of Fiddler's Cove Canal, but beyond the entrance to Megansett Harbor, the little harbor? I mean, at the very end of the harbor? Is it between the entrance exit of Rand's Canal and where Megansett Harbor hits the shoreline?
It's,
Is that about right?
yes, it's supposed to be basically dead center between the Rand Canal and the Fiddler's Cove channels.
Okay.
So it doesn't interfere with any kind of navigation.
All right.
And,
Yeah, the Rand's Canal, that's it. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
One other question, this is probably not your problem, but for geography for the board, I know that we just recently approved this process for another applicant. Is this adjacent, very close?
It's separated by the Rand's Canal channel.
Oh, okay, so it's the opposite
On the
side.
other side.
Okay,
Opposite side.
great,
Rand's
all
Canal.
right,
And,
thank you.
I was actually there for that town meeting, and I don't want anything more than just the 4 corner buoys, just the markers. And if the town decides it wants to put more moorings in Megansett Harbor on that site, that's fine with me. It's a concrete block. It's not moving. My gear wouldn't be moving. So,
Okay, great,
got
thank you.
record for that.
I'd like to commend you on this application, because you even told us what would happen if we had high speeds. And you went from one level to the other, and I had a visual of the whole thing. So I think you're very detailed, and I compliment you for doing that, because it sounded to me like, I didn't know what was gonna happen on the bottom of that ocean floor, but you told me, so.
Thank you very much.
It was good. And then, even at a point that if you thought that things were going to be vetoed, you even had an answer for that you would change things. So, I think you have all your bases covered here.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other further questions from the board?
Move we close the hearing?
Second?
Oh, the public. Okay.
Oh,
Before we entertain that.
we're all out of
Questions or
sync
comments
tonight.
from the public? This is a public hearing. Anyone interested in speaking on this application? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. How would the board like to proceed?
Make a motion to approve?
A motion to approve the preliminary application
Yeah,
and a
preliminary
second?
application.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Doing well this evening. So the next item on our agenda is a public comment policy discussion. This was born out of
Town
the
meeting.
town meeting vote and a few members of the board putting a bug in my ear that we might want to revisit this based on the town meeting vote. We do have here, and thank
You
Ms.
do?
Sorry?
No,
It wasn't in your packet?
no,
Oh,
but that's all right.
is it included in everyone's
Did
packet?
Just
everybody
delivered to
have
us
it?
today from
Oh, okay.
Mr. Suso.
There is a draft policy that was based on, I believe it's a county policy that Ms. Flynn provided to us.
Oh, it's here, in here. Oh, I see, I have it.
There wasn't anything.
It was in,
No, Julian just gave it to us
what
tonight,
Julian passed out to
on the
us.
front of the thing.
What I did, I just sort of adapted this policy from another policy. It's pretty brief. It does address, what it lays out is that at the beginning of the agenda, after announcements, there would be a public comment period. And I'm suggesting, usually it's customary, the board set about the first 10 minutes for public comment, and each person who wishes to speak can speak either 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever the board decides to do. And at the end of the 10 minutes, then that's the end of the public comment period. And if there are still people who wish to speak, they have to come back the next week, you know, because otherwise, if you had a whole lot of people, it could take up a lot of time in the first meeting. And then it broke it down into two types of public comment. The first would be for people who wish to comment on a matter that's not on the agenda. That's really what public comment is for. It's to comment on anything. You might want to comment on an event that's upcoming. You might want to compliment a particular individual for something that they did that was very noteworthy, that you wanted not only the board to know, but the public to know. Or it could be on any matter that's not on the agenda. That's what public comment is all about. And then there's another section says that if you wish the board to participate in the public comment that you want to present to the board, then you would have to notify the town manager's office, who would then have to put you on an agenda. Because the only time the board can engage in any discussion in public comment is if it is posted on the agenda and you provided the board with any materials regarding the matter that you wish to bring before them. So if you just simply want to come in and make a statement about anything, anything that's within the jurisdiction granted to the board by the Commonwealth, by the laws of the Commonwealth, and by the Falmouth Home Rule Charter. I mean, things that we don't have any jurisdiction over would not normally be presented to the board because we could not, in the future, take any action on them anyway. Sometimes what will happen is that someone who comes in and makes a public comment about an issue that may be important to them, it might be something that the chairman may want to bring back to the board on an agenda and say, I think we need to do something. We might want to do something about this. We may want to look into it. This looks like it might have some merit. We may want to investigate it further. But public comment is really with the beholder, if you will. It's the person who wishes to make the comment. And it's just simply that. It's just a statement of anything that the person wants to say. And that's what this policy addresses. If you wish to have the board participate, then you have to go through the agenda process, get on the agenda, and have the chairman approve it, set a time, so that you can come in and then have an actual discussion with the board. So that's how it's laid out. And however, that's just, that's customary. And it doesn't mean that that's what we have to do, just because that's what most other towns do, but that's usually the way they work.
I like it, and in other places I've seen, there's a sign-up sheet.
Yes, you can have a
So in other
sign-up
words,
sheet.
it's not a free-for-all who gets to it first. Whoever comes in and signs the sheet first, it goes down. And your 10-minute period, it's out. The only other suggestion I might have is that any given speaker can only bring up once the topic under public comment. And meaning the same item can't be brought up every week by that same speaker in repetitiveness. And in other words, there are some things that can be formulated any form or fashion you want to do, but I've seen that in one board that's one of the things they do. It could be up for discussion on how the board would like to do that.
Well, and usually the chairman, when it opens public comment, says that it's a public comment period for anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. And then say in an item that that is certainly within, you don't have to go through the whole thing about within the board's jurisdiction, but.
I would like to also see that if this is going to be a written policy, that we reference the Board of Selectmen's speaker policy.
I don't know that I heard you say there was a time limit for each person. If we're talking 10 minutes total, it would be 2 minutes. And once the 2 minutes were over and there was no other speaker, it doesn't mean that that speaker gets the whole 10 minutes.
Correct.
It's just
2 minutes per
And there are
individual.
no comments that are made from the board to any of the speakers, that this is silent on this end, and that the chairman would make the decision if there's a conversation that isn't appropriate.
And that's part of the speaker's policy, and I think there's going to be a certain amount of discretion by the chair here in terms of, you know, we're going to have to, whoever has the gavel at the time is going to have to make sure that the individual speaking is adhering to the speaker's policy, obviously. So if they step across the line, there will have to be the appropriate warnings and so on. We may want to get a timer, and perhaps the vice chair could assume that role.
We all have iPhones.
There you go. Seeing as the chair has to deal with the gavel and the potential of mediating the discussion or or moderating the speaker, then the vice chair could manage the clock. Some of the things, as far as repeat issues go, I would presume that if the board addresses the issue, it would never become a repeat issue. And if it is brought up again, then perhaps it's because the board failed to act on it in a satisfactory manner. And of course, the speaker's policy was mentioned, so.
Well, I have, as I mentioned in my memo to the board, that I've, as a commissioner, I've attended every single selectmen's meeting on the Cape, at least twice, if not more than twice, including the Barnstable Town Council. And most all of them do have a speaker's policy. And I have found in every single town that the people who come up to speak are very, they're very precise. They keep to the 2 minutes. They usually have something very informative to say. It's something that they want the board to hear. And they've always been very polite, and for the most part, it goes very well. And at 2 minutes, usually they know it's 2 minutes, and they don't speak for more than that. But it ends, and the 10-minute period absolutely ends at 10 minutes. But usually, and there's no conversation by the board, no response from the board to any public comment. And it usually works very well.
The only thing in that situation, though, is if someone has a question for the board that we can potentially answer.
No.
Say, for example, well, what if they, for example, when we first tried this a few months back, Mr. Latimer had a question which we were able to redirect him at that time and say, listen, you probably should be talking to the Conservation Commission about this because they deal with that particular issue. I mean, this is one of the facets of public comment, is that there may be individuals who genuinely have a question and are trying to get an answer, and it may be something that we can direct them to a certain town department, or say, okay, we probably need to get this on the agenda, and we'll meet with you to do so.
Well, under the open meeting law, you really can't, the board cannot discuss anything under public comment because it's not on the agenda. And I think you have to educate the public that's coming in under comment that there is no interaction between them and the board. And if it's a question they have, they should probably ask that in a different forum. I mean, if somebody really had a question about something, they could pick up the phone, call the town manager, stop in, see the town manager, something like that. But I have never seen a board of selectmen respond in any way under public comment to anyone, in the least the ones that I happen to be there for.
And there's other ways to respond, and the other ways to respond are, is the chairman can either put it on as an agenda item, or, members of the board could speak to the town manager. The town manager is here. He knows that there are issues. Again, we set policy and procedure. Where there are operational issues, that he can have a department head address it individually, or something of that nature.
I would just say that on the previous committee, we had a 2-minute time, and there was never any back and forth conversation, and there really weren't questions. People were simply making a statement. So it was very orderly, and it worked well.
And I agree with Mr. Murphy that if there is a question, we can do our best, either as the board or town manager, to reach out to that person to answer the question, but not in the context of the meeting.
Yeah, I don't think you want expectations that they're going to get a problem solved that evening.
No, and no, I certainly don't want to set that expectation. Yeah. Very true. This is a policy on public comment, so I invite the public, anyone who's interested in providing some feedback about this concept, this policy. You're welcome to do so at this time.
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. Under the parameters that you seem to have laid out,
I can remember in the past, never when you were chairman, Mr. Putnam, but people approaching me and saying that they've been trying to get an item on the agenda for months. If they were to come here, express their concern or whatever, if they're only limited to one question, one session, I mean, it actually allows through this for them to be further stonewalled. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I just want to point that out, that it's a possibility, and in those instances, it would really be, or could possibly be of no use to anyone. Thank you.
No, I see where you're coming from, and as I noted, I think if it's something that has to be brought to the board's attention more than once, then clearly there's probably a lack of action on the board's part, or the office of the town manager and his staff, and it's something that would need to be addressed. So
it's important to note that not every issue this board can bring up, that it's out of our realm, you know, what the charter says we do. And so there are some of those issues we have no control over.
And I agree, and that's one of the reasons why, while I understand, you know, what's being said in terms of absolutely no feedback, I think sometimes it is necessary to help these folks understand where it lies. I've been approached by some folks to put things on the agenda, and the reality is that there are things that have to go through staff first, or shouldn't even come to this board. And so, you know, this is one of the things that we have to consider, is that if we're going to allow folks to stand up and address the board on an ad hoc basis, the question is how do we address those situations where someone makes a request to do something or to have something done by the board that doesn't fall under our jurisdiction? Is it appropriate for us to say, we hear your request, however, that's something best managed by the town manager's office, and we would direct you to speak to him?
But that even could be up for debate. It could be that you think it's not appropriate for the board to cover, and I think it is, and you've answered saying it's not appropriate for the board to discuss, but I believe it is appropriate for the board to discuss. How do I, you know, we've answered the question in an opinion of one person, as opposed to in the opinion of the board, and the board can't discuss the opinion because it's not on the agenda.
Point taken.
I think we have to understand that this is public comment, and it's comments that people are making. It's not questions that they're asking. It's not issues they're bringing before the board. It's a comment. That's what it is. And there are people who, and a lot of times people just want to talk about certain events. If they have a real issue with the town, this probably is not the right venue to bring forward an issue. The issue would be to talk to the town manager if they have an issue, or to call up a member of the board and say, I have a real issue, can you help me with it? And then we know how to respond to that. If it's something that we think that the board should talk about, we talk to the chairman about it. So it isn't a place for solving problems, it's just a place for someone to make a comment about something. And without expecting any kind of an answer. Now, somebody might make a comment about an issue that we may have thought was resolved, and they want to let us know that it's become an issue, and then it would be something that perhaps after the meeting, the chairman might ask the town manager to follow up with that person and say, you know, can you find out more about this? It wasn't very clear. But I think the purpose is to give every citizen in the town who wishes to come before the board and make a comment the opportunity to do that. Whether they come 3 times a month or once a month or once a year. I mean, if it really gets to be out of hand, if some people take advantage of it, then maybe we have to say, but I think the idea is to give people the opportunity to come before the board and make a statement.
And I agree with you, and I'm sure that everyone's aware that the Veterans Council at one point in time wanted to change the location of the office for the employee of the Veterans Council. They had petitioned me as chairman and asked for that, but it's outside the realm of the Board of Selectmen. Space allocation and the day-to-day operations of the town manager's role. It's up to him how he solves those problems. We give him direction with our strategic plans, with our policies, but day-to-day operations our form of government doesn't allow an end run. And I think that's as simple as it is. If you want to change our form of government, we need to change it. But we can't change it here on the fly. And I agree with you, Pat, that's what public comment is public comment.
It's just that, a comment. And they may want to say, that event that you approved for last, 6 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago really went great. Everyone had a good time. And I just want to say, so-and-so worked on it, worked really hard. I want to compliment that person and let everyone know that their event came off really well, or something like that. And people do that. That's important. And it's good for us to hear that things go well sometimes instead of not so well.
There's also nothing stopping an individual from coming to us and perhaps making that kind of a request, but what I'm hearing is that we don't make any, there's no answers, no discussion about it at that time. We'll have to get back to them at a later date. I know Mr. Finneran would like to speak. Anyone else?
Back right. Nancy.
Oh, okay. Mr. Finneran, would you mind giving Ms. Hayward an opportunity, seeing as you've already spoken? We'll get to you right afterwards.
Nancy Hayward, Precinct 5, and I am the member of a commission, of the Historical Commission. And my understanding of the open meeting law is that information can be shared. Now, if you couch this comment period in people bringing information to you, it seems understandable that you may not want even to get information back to them. However, in Mr. Murphy's case of the Veterans Board wanting maybe more of a discussion about space, is it inappropriate for, let's stick with that, that the Veterans Council should have to make a statement, not how they feel about it, but we want to change our space. That's a fact. That someone be able to say back to them. The Board of Selectmen doesn't deal with that. The town manager needs to be contacted, and that seems very short and succinct. Now, maybe you don't even want to, I gather you don't want to even give that limited direction to them. I do think that sometimes, maybe it's easier if it's town manager, maybe as a resident, you know this more direct approach to get, and you can find the town manager's office. We're fairly multiple areas in town. So I think people can wander around. If they can get no direct information back, they may feel frustrated.
Nancy, if I could, this is just a very simple thing. It's a period for a person to come in and make a comment, period. That's it.
Okay.
If you want to do anything more than that, there are other avenues to follow, like getting on the agenda, talking to the town manager, going to see a department head, but this is just to come in and make a comment. A good comment, hopefully. Sometimes maybe somebody would have a comment that wasn't so good. But the point is, you come in, you make it, you say what you want to say, and that's it. And if the board determines at some point, or the town manager does, that maybe they need to contact that person in some way, shape, or form, the town manager could do that. But this is strictly a comment. That's what it is, public comment. It's nothing more than that. It's not a discussion. It's not a response. It's simply a comment.
I think the only response that may be appropriate based on what I'm hearing from the board is that if the commenter requests some feedback, say they would like to have the board do something like address a space allocation issue, the only possible answer would be, we'll have to get back to you on that.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Of course.
I know my way around the town, the structure of the town, more than quite a few other people do. Does the town need some specified resource, hopefully in print, because there are still people who are not internet capable, but perhaps if not a posting somewhere, something on the town website where people can go and find resources. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll have to get back to you on that.
Mark Finneran again, Precinct 6. I'd like to just point out that there was something I think very important in Mr. Jones' comment, that say someone had, and I'm not saying it's the veterans issue or whatever, something they hadn't been able to bring forward to the board, if they had the reassurance that there was perhaps one member of the board who would put that forward onto the agenda or sponsor you, help you, I mean, I think it would go a long way to giving the appearance of a much more open process.
I think something like this, there's an opportunity here for folks, because sometimes the general public will approach one member of the board based on who they might be more comfortable approaching. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that they're going to get the response that they're looking for, which is where something like this may come into play, that they can come in and address the entire board. And even if the only answer we can give them that evening is, we'll have to get back to you, at least they know that the message has been received by all 5 members of the board, that the press and the public have heard their comments or their request, and it's probably, it's a more efficient way, if you will, perhaps, to get things done than to try going through one person after another person after another person. So hopefully that might address your question.
But I mean, I just envision the person who doesn't know anyone on the board, and for them to have the opportunity to bring it forward, and then if there was the ability for someone to, again, support them and assist them getting it on the agenda, I think that's a pretty open and a nice appearance of the whole process. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on this?
Dan Shearer, Precinct 6. The other thing which I think this board has to look at or find a way to improve is what committees in town that are advisory committees to this board, and to find out what you'd like to advise us on. I'm on the Solid Waste Committee. We don't know what to do. And seeing that we're not having any selectmen come to our meetings and talk, we're sort of at a standstill as to, let's see what we can talk about, and maybe somebody will be interested someday. But it isn't working out that way.
And I think, Mr. Shearer, I don't know if you heard at town meeting, the report that I made to town meeting, that one of the workshops that's going to be coming up early next year is a discussion about committees, governance of the committees, and perhaps even the idea of merging or eliminating some committees.
Yes,
so.
I did hear that.
Okay. So
but
that's coming.
I'm still stating it, and I've stated this for a couple of years now. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments on the public policy comment, or the public comment policy?
I just wanted to make, I'm not sure that we said in the very beginning that the policy on public comment has two parts. The first part is the one that we've been just discussing, which is public comment on routine matters, where someone just wants to come in and make a comment. And then there's public comment on topics that invite participation by the Board of Selectmen. So if you want the board to participate in some public comment, it lays out the process how you do that. And that is getting on the agenda, which is pretty clear. So there are two parts to it. That's why I stress that if you just come in under routine matters, then it is a very straightforward comment period with no response from the board. I mean, no direct response.
All right, well, we have the draft policy. Do we want to move ahead with this, put this on the next agenda, make it, add it to the announcements section of the agenda, as is suggested here, that perhaps it would be announcements, proclamations, and public comment?
I would suggest we
Yes.
work under this draft policy for about a month.
And see how it
then
goes?
maybe finalize the policy after we've tried it out.
Good idea.
Can we just add that, just that one thing, that it would include a Board of Selectmen speaker policy?
Oh, yeah.
We can add that, too.
So in other words, there would be the Pledge of Allegiance, announcements and proclamations, and then underneath that, public comment. And that would, and everyone would
For
realize,
announcements, proclamations, and public comment.
well, except that you don't want that to take up the 10 minutes,
True.
the announcements and proclamations, because you want to devote 10 minutes to public comment only.
But the policy, per what Mr. Murphy is suggesting, that the
That
public
be added
comment
to it.
policy should refer to the
Reference.
speaker's policy.
We can do that.
All right.
I would move approval of this policy in principle, and then we can, in a month or so, finalize the actual writing of it.
How about, in kind of, why don't we make a motion to accept it for a 2-month trial period, and to be...
Bring it back in 2 months.
If it's not successful, that we would adapt it after a couple of months,
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
with that one other speaker policy addition, okay?
With the note of the speaker's
Okay.
policy.
So that would be the motion.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All right. Next item on our agenda is a fee hearing continued from November 4. And we did go through and review all of the fees at the time. I think what we'll do is we'll go through this section by section. What I'll do is I'll go through this section by section and see if the board has any additional comments or questions. I'll give the public a last opportunity for comments or questions, and then we can circle back around and cast the necessary votes. Does that sound agreeable to everyone?
It would, we will vote on each one of them.
We'll do
When
them
you come back
individually,
around.
yes. Yes.
Thank you.
So under the beach department, we have children's swimming lessons per child. Present fee is 20, proposed is 30. Each additional child is $10 at present. It would be proposed to go up to 20. Up to 3 children would be $70, and more than 3 children would be no additional cost. Any questions or comments on this? Questions or comments from the public? Mr. Finneran.
I don't have any disagreement with that, but I think maybe if you have like a family who genuinely couldn't afford it, if there was some avenue for them to appeal for either a lower rate or not to pay at all. Because let's face it, there are some people out there with a load of children who can barely afford to live here. Thanks.
I applaud Mr. Finneran's suggestion, but the kind of documentation that family would then have to present, being an organization that has to go through this every summer, ends up being both confidentially delicate and difficult for the administration to deal with.
Probably more expensive than the cost of $20 a child or $30 a child for just the summer. Mr. Shearer, you have a question or comment?
What Dan Shearer, I'm a member of the beach committee. We want every child to learn how to swim. It's a very important thing. If somebody cannot afford it, and would put that in writing or come to one of our meetings, I'm sure we will make exceptions. But they have to prove they can't afford it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. Under the beach department, we also have daily parking fees at Bristol Beach. Currently, there are none, and it's proposed for a $10 fee Monday through Friday, excluding the 4th of July.
Mr. Chairman, I had asked Mr. Hoffa, and it came up at our last meeting about the number of passes that are sold at the accommodation locations. So he gave me a list of all of those passes that are sold. So these folks currently have access to that beach if they buy a pass at any one of these locations. So, I'm neither for nor against at this point in time, but I just wanted to let the board know that there are currently a lot of people that are able to buy passes going into those beaches.
Mr. Hoffer, would you? I have a question about this. Number of tickets. So the first line here is a campground, and I'm reading it says 100, 100, 100, and there are 8 100s. So does that mean they sell 800 one-day passes in the summer?
Yes, that's what it means.
Wow.
We don't, once they buy them from us, we don't, check them to make sure how they use them. Excuse me. At the end of the season, they can turn in what they don't use and get credit for them.
Do we see a lot of turn-ins from any of the...
No, they keep them from year to year, assuming you're going to keep the $10 fee going. Some will, depending, if they've got $500 worth, they probably want to turn them in.
Okay. And these are $10 for the one-day pass?
It makes a citizen out of anybody for one day that is staying at a hotel, motel, excuse me, situation.
Okay.
By the way, I have, on your last question, I have already, no offense, Dan, but I've already, there's precedent for giving someone a break that can't afford either the price or even a parking fee.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's something that you, as a department, deal with. Okay.
We've had a lot of emails and letters from people who really oppose this $10 fee at Bristol Beach. And they're the residents of Falmouth Heights. Some of them are inn owners, but they probably give those to their guests. But on general principle, they are really opposed to the idea. And I don't know where there's been any resolution about how Bristol Beach was deeded to the town and whether or not it's even possible to charge because of the way it was a gift and because of the way the gift was structured in terms of the legal document. But I don't think, I'm not really in favor of charging $10 to people over and above what people already pay. The guests, people, tourists who come here pay.
Right, and I'm not, as I said, I had asked for this just to show that there's an opportunity for folks who stay in it, paying rooms tax and things like that to buy a thing. I really don't know how much revenue would really gain in that location. So I understand that it's surely the one day that someone who happens to be on vacation, who pays taxes year-round here and might use their house on their 2 weeks vacation, and they want to go to the beach and they can't get in. That's the one day that there's frustration. So
I worry that us reading the deed of gift saying that you can't charge at Bristol Beach parking lot because of what the deed says, and we're going to use that as a reason not to do it, But the deed actually says the only people who can use the beach. Now, if we're gonna just not charge $10, shouldn't we then follow through with that deed and somehow restrict who's actually on the beach? And that's what the deed says. And I worry that we're using the argument to do one thing, but we're not using it to do the other
Well, I'm not
side.
using that argument because I don't know if it's ever been resolved about the beach and the deed. It's still up in the air. I mean, we've never had any real clarification of it.
Still being reviewed.
It's still being reviewed, so I don't think that we should at least not charge until we get some resolution to the deed.
Well, let's
So,
wait to hear. Any public comment on this? I know we had some last time around. Anyone wish to speak on the daily parking fee for Bristol Beach? Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. Perhaps I'm not following this correctly, but don't we already have a window or an opportunity or a way around this if someone would just go to the Park Beach Motel and buy a $10 daily pass?
And that's exactly what happens, yes.
And incidentally, they can buy them at the Chamber of Commerce, too, I'm pretty sure.
They have to be staying at the,
yeah, they have to stay there. They can't just go and buy it.
hotel or motel.
Aren't these available, I'm sorry, is there, available through the Chamber of Commerce as well?
Weekly pass.
No? Okay.
No, and to the best of my knowledge, the way this thing is supposed to work, you're supposed to be a patron of the
guest.
Holiday Inn or whatever it is.
But you can buy a weekly pass that makes you a citizen for the week,
Well,
right?
they can buy a weekly pass also. I don't know if there's of any interest to the board, but, and I believe, I looked at the drawing, part of that property we own. We own all of it, but part of it was not deeded to us, I believe.
That's what
On
it
the
shows.
east side of the creek. It looks like that's our property to do with whatever we want to do. And I don't know whether the board is interested in that or not, but you have the deeded part of it, and then you have the non.
Can I ask one last question? Dawn, how many paid people do you really think we'd get out of that?
Well, on that little slice, assuming we can't do it on the deeded part,
Right.
you have about 24 spaces. So if you filled it up on a day, that you get to
Do you think we would fill
240
it?
a day, you'd probably fill it most days. I mean, it's a valuable area. And stepping a little further, and I'm getting a little out of my, right now, you could extend that lot a wee bit and probably pick up 4 or 5 or 6 more spaces.
That's a
Do you know what I
conversation
mean?
for
As you
another
travel
time.
to the east, you have that little cutout. And,
Any other questions from the board?
but, again, that's something you may want.
Yeah, for another time.
It's not that critical, you know.
Questions from the public on this? Board of Selectmen filing fee aquaculture license, currently none. Proposed is $25. Advertising fee for aquaculture and fuel storage is none. Proposed is $25.
Are we going to vote these by section, or are we going to vote them all at once?
Wait.
Or what do
I was
Oh.
suggesting that we circle back and do the votes at the
Oh.
end, but if you'd like, we can change it and just vote as we go along.
I think that might make more
Vote
sense.
each section as we go?
I think we should vote as we go.
All right, then let's, then
Vote
we'll
the
take
beach
that up.
department.
If we
First,
go quicker.
I move the children's swimming lessons increase from $30 and $20 each additional child up to 3 children, $37.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to increase the children's swimming lessons, the children's swimming lesson fees. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous.
I'm not sure if we need to make a motion this way, but I move we do not increase the Bristol Beach parking fees up to $10, with, again, apologies to the beach department for coming again with a request as we've asked them to, but I just don't think this is the time to do that.
Second.
Well, there's a motion and a second. I'm going to vote against the motion. And while I appreciate all of the feedback that we've received from the residents of Falmouth Heights and the Mara Vista area, I'm going to point out the obvious, and it's been said a few times here, is that if you're a hotel customer in the town of Falmouth And there are, on this list, over 1,700 one-day passes that are sold annually to these hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, campgrounds. Anybody with one of these one-day passes can get into Bristol Beach. And I don't see any difference between that and driving up to Bristol Beach and handing the person $10. It's a matter of semantics, quite honestly. And, you know, as noted, the question then becomes, well, how do we police who's on the beach based on the deed? And the answer is you don't. Because, you know, we've had some discussion about this in the past, where we talk about Falmouth residents and their guests, with a nod to Mr. Dufresne, who's used that term many times. Falmouth residents and their guests has been interpreted over the years to mean anyone who is staying in accommodations in the town of Falmouth. They are guests of the town of Falmouth. And that interpretation has been made over and over and over again with respect to the beaches. And as noted, there's nothing that stops anyone from parking at Bristol Beach and walking down, and some folks may do this already, and walk down to the Heights Beach because it's more convenient there in terms of having the restaurants and the ball field and the amenities that aren't at Bristol Beach. I think, quite frankly, that we could, as suggested, we own or have owned the parking lot at the east side of Bristol Beach. We've owned that outright. I don't think it falls under the deed restriction. I think we could certainly do a pilot program for a year to see how that works out. That still leaves the west side open for permits. We have testimony from beach committee members who have said that the east side is in fact not used much, if at all, during the week in the summertime. And that's all this is proposing, is to open that up to a paid lot where you, instead of going to and getting a one-day pass from the hotel that you're staying in, you drive down with your $10 and you get into the parking lot. Will it make us any money? Will it add anything to the revenue? I don't think we know yet, to be sure. But I think the arguments against it are missing the fact that, like I said, 1,700 one-day passes, and it's effectively the same thing. It's just the question of who collects the money, whether it's the hotel that does it indirectly or whether it's somebody, a beach attendant, a parking attendant at Bristol Beach. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
My reason for not being supportive of it is more to do with how busy that beach is already. And to make it easier to increase the number of people using Bristol Beach is what concerns me for the residents more than the worry about the deed or the worry about the $10 of the parking. But it is not a beach I've been to very often, but to have the residents say it is already packed and we're going to make it easier to increase the number of people actually at the beach is where the reason why I don't support it this time.
How many beaches are paying a fee to use them?
Where you can hand a $10 bill or a $20 bill to park as opposed to having a sticker?
Yes.
Right now it's 3. It's Old Silver Beach, Surf Drive, and Minot. This would essentially add a 4th.
And Woods Neck?
Sorry?
Those are resident only.
You have to have a
Wood Neck
sticker.
is resident only.
Yeah.
Permit only.
Permit only.
I mean, the permits are all
Yeah.
Sticker.
Okay. So all the rest then are residents only?
Mr. Hoffer, you'd like to clarify?
When you say resident, Wood Neck Beach, it really is a sticker beach, because if you have a non-resident sticker, you can get into that beach. But there's only 3 paid lots, as Chairman pointed out. Unless you want to call Mill Road, but that's part of Surf Drive. But all the rest of the beaches is there's only one beach we have that is resident, and that's the resident side of Old Silver.
Thank you.
In fact, I believe the hotel motel is not on it on that beach. But the word is sticker rather than resident.
Sticker, yeah, you're right.
I was torn on this subject, specifically with the number of passes that are sold at the, hotel, motels, B&Bs. Although those folks provide a lot of services for those guests. I mean, in other words, those folks don't necessarily use the same services as a one-day beachgoer who's driving here from somewhere else. They're paying hotel, motel taxes. Those folks are paying taxes on their properties. But I was torn because, I really think that a visitor today will become a resident tomorrow in this community. And that's typically how that happens. However, someone did bring to my attention the fact of how many meters there are in Falmouth Heights. So the meters provide an opportunity for those folks to be able to go to the beach there. They can get a meter spot and put money into the meter if they want to go to the Falmouth Heights beach. It provides a unique opportunity for folks to be able to go to the beach there and not pay a full $10. They could pay, $1 for 1 hour if they just want to go for a swim, or $2 for 2 hours if they just want to go for a swim. So at this time, until we fully clarify the other issue as well, about who owns what, I think that I'm going to vote to go against the $10 fee at this time.
Do you have a comment? No? All right.
We're all set.
So we have a motion and a second not to establish a $10 fee at Bristol Beach. Any last discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I am opposed. The motion carries 4-1.
I move the Board of Selectmen's filing fee and advertising fee for the aquaculture license and the aquaculture fuel storage of $25.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Very quickly, I don't know if we took any public comment on this. Anyone who has any questions or comments on the filing fees and advertising fees for aquaculture license or fuel storage? Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Conservation Commission, notice of intent applications, Category 2 commercial would go from $150 to $300. Category 3 coastal projects and dredging would go from $450 to $550. Questions or comments from the public? How would the board like to proceed?
So moved.
Second.
A motion to increase them and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Fire Department's ambulance rates. Basic life support, the base rate would move from Medicare plus 50%, which is $552.19, to Medicare plus 75%, which is $644.22. Advanced Life Support 1 would go from the current Medicare plus 50%, which is $655.74, to Medicare plus 75%, which is $765.03. And Advanced Life Support System 2 would move from Medicare plus 50, which is $949.09, to Medicare plus 75%, which is $1,107.27. And then we have the sprinkler system permit fee, presently $25, proposed $50. Questions or comments from the public?
Malcolm Donald, Precinct 6. Could you explain why our incomes aren't going up as fast as the fees are?
I cannot, sir. I'm sorry. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the increased rates.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, although I know we have a fully professional fire and rescue, I think the chief does a good job. I think everybody in the department does a great job. I surely can say that every time I hear an ambulance or a fire engine in this town, I know that help is on the way. I like that term. But increasing the fees just because other towns do it, from going from the Medicare rate plus 50% to go to 75%, I think that, my mother always taught me, just because someone else is doing it doesn't always make it right. And quite candidly, I don't think it's right. I think what we're doing is just piling on because we can pile on. This isn't a little $10 increase or a $20 increase. This gets to be substantial. And we're adding to the darn problem, and I don't want to keep staying on my soapbox about this, but the rising health care costs, we grapple with it in our community. Everybody, citizen in this community grapples with it, and I think that we need to be part of the solution, and this is one of the things that we can be part of the solution. I think that what we get for what the service is provided that day is fair and adequate. And just because someone else can do it or we can do it, I don't think it's right. So I'm not going to vote to go to 75%. But then again, you've heard me say that before.
And last year, last year's 50% was an increase already.
It went up from 25 to 50 last year.
I would either want to support this and let it known that this is where we're going to stop for a while, or ask, could we do this percent increase next year?
But usually what we ask is that, from department heads, is that when they propose fees, that they have a cost basis for proposing those fees, that the actual cost of the service is represented by the fee, that we're not adding, a profit onto that cost. But my understanding is that even from these fees, that they, even though they are going up, that they really do not pay the full cost of the service that's provided. And maybe the chief can answer that. And I appreciate what you're saying. I agree too that healthcare costs have to be reduced, but for us to absorb it alone is not necessarily in our best interest. Also, most of the time, this is covered by insurance. Not that that's any great thing either, because insurance costs are too high. Everything has to come down, but I don't think we can deal with the cost of healthcare in our fee discussions. So I'd like to hear the chief respond to, does it really cover the costs?
Hi, Mark Sullivan, Fire Chief. No, it doesn't. Excuse me. Last year's program budgeting, we had computed that the EMS section is probably worth about $3.3 million out of about a $6 million budget. And we bring in approximately about $1.4 million in ambulance revenue.
So we still subsidize the service. The
Through the
taxpayers do. Yeah, they do. So I know what you're saying, you can't keep raising it, but it's not us that raises it, it's that the federal government or whomever isn't really doing what it needs to do to reduce the cost.
It would be nice if we couldn't charge anything.
Yes.
That did happen one time.
And we could debate this, but the program budgeting doesn't necessarily take into account at your ready. I mean, that's like saying, why don't we just get rid of the fire part of the service because we don't take in any money there.
And why do we do the program budgeting?
You have to make a value judgment when you do program budgeting. You're exactly right. But the truth be told, if we took into account the fire aspect of it, we wouldn't have a fire department. The people in this town want public safety. And part of that public safety is, in fact, ambulance service. And so part of that cost has to be, I really like to look at the program budgeting when we talk about that, and I surely will as we move forward, because I want to see what the actual fixed costs are, because if that ambulance doesn't leave the house, how much does it cost us? Because we still have to have at-your-ready folks, meaning people to staff it, we have to have people to we have to have the infrastructure cost, but how much additional does it cost us to send that ambulance out versus it staying there? And that's where I differ with some of the program budgeting. So I'm going to get off the soapbox.
Well, I'm going to make, if I may, one more comment. If we don't raise, in other words, by raising this fee, this is part of the budget for the fire department. So if we don't raise this fee, then that reduces the budget that the funds that the chief needs to run the department. So that lack of funding coming from the fees is going to have to come from somewhere else.
Absolutely not.
Sure.
It goes into the general fund.
Well, but where do the monies from the general fund come from? They come from the taxpayers.
To Ms. Flynn's point, if we don't raise the fees, then the difference between the $1.5 million that was generated and the $3 million that it costs is borne by the taxpayers out of property taxes. I don't know that we're going to make up $1.5 million by raising this another 25%.
But it's,
and quite honestly, I see
it's like a user fee in a way.
Well, and I see where both of you are coming from.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's one of those situations where between a rock and a hard place, and I'm not quite sure, even at this late hour, I'm not even quite sure where I'm going to vote with this one yet. So,
If I look at Medicare plus 75%, and the very first one, which is a $644, I'm looking at money out of pocket is $483 for the person after their Medicare has paid. So it's close to $500 to have an ambulance to come and take you to our Falmouth Hospital.
Not if you're a Medicare patient, no. If you're a Medicare patient, as I said before, the Medicare rate is $389. We're at Medicare plus 50% right now. But if you're a Medicare patient, which 70% of the transports that we do are Medicare, they don't care. You could charge $3,000 per call. They are going to pay 80% of $389. So Medicare, right now, if I'm 67 years old, I go and I break my leg, Medicare is going to pay 80% of $389, which is $311. So I'm now responsible for $77. And that's, most people, the majority have supplemental insurance to cover
Pays
that.
the 20%.
Okay, I just want to say the last time we discussed that, I asked that question.
Yep.
And the answer
why I
was that we're paying 75% of the 644. So somewhere
I
in
may have
that-
misinformed you then, if that's the case.
Maybe, okay. Thank you. I'm glad I came back at that question. Okay. So the Medicare will, okay, that's fine.
So the only people going after is working families,
No, it's,
Well, if you're not a Medicare.
because they're the ones who are paying the increase, the extra 50 or 75%, right?
The extra 30% are either others, which one of the questions the board asked me a couple weeks ago were how many patients, out of 3,908 patients, 286 are considered self-pay. The rest were all either insurance, Medicare, or some other kind of thing.
286.
6 out of 3.
self-pay.
7.3%.
Okay,
So
okay.
One of the things, I don't want to fight to raise the fees. I don't care if we have fees. I'd rather do it for nothing.
It doesn't affect you, right.
But they're recommending, these professionals, which I'll gladly leave this off, are recommending we go to bundling rates. I mean, last year I recommended that we go to the à la carte rates, and that was met with resistance. So I'm certain this would be met with resistance. But that's what they're telling you, because this national health care program, that we should get involved with this and get ahead of it. But I'm not going to fight that. So it's just, I'm just telling you what the professionals are telling us.
Okay, so just for the board's edification, and thank you for that number, that 286. I was looking and did a quick estimate. We're looking at roughly $100 to $150 difference with the base, the advanced life support 1 and 2. What we're looking at here is about $43,000 difference between what's going on now and what's being proposed. So the question is it worth it to us to change the fees for $43,000? All right.
Could we have the motion said one more time?
The motion is to increase
Fees.
all of the fire department fees. Now, we could break these out if you want to. But at present, the motion on the floor, which Ms. Flynn made, was to increase the fire department fees, as recommended.
Just one last comment. A couple of years ago, we proposed this at 100%. I think we settled to slowly take it in increments, but I think we need to take a little breath here. There's a lot going on in national health care costs. I don't think it's going to hurt anybody if we took a break and kept it at 50% this year, following what you're saying, and then take a look at it next year and see where we are. I surely, for one, want to get into the program budgeting on this, because I want to see, and it's not you, I'll ask the town manager's office to see what we have for fixed costs on that. But
I think on that, sir, you have to remember, too, we're getting a 2-for-1 service, too. The firefighters / paramedics that are in the fire station are also, so there's another part of that budget that you have to look at, too, is the fire suppression side. So we're getting a 2-for-1 rate.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Last questions, comments?
Let's go.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Opposed. The motion does not carry. All right, I'd like the board to consider the sprinkler system permit fee on its own.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask the chief, do you have to come back then and add that to your budget? The difference to your budget next year, when you come back for the budget meetings? Are you going to have to take up that difference now that you thought you would have based on the fees?
No, that was not computed into our FY15 budget. That would have just been extra money to go into the general fund to help support the
Okay.
rescue service.
So we have that much less in our general fund then?
Right.
Okay.
43,000, potentially.
Maybe.
Can we reconsider the sprinkler system permit fee on its own?
Yes, I'd make a motion that we approve the increase from $25 to $50.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion on this? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous. All right, now we have a number of them under the Marine and Environmental Services, moorings, slips. I'm going to read through all of these, and then if we want to take up any discussion about them separately, let me know, because if there is any discussion, I don't want to have to keep coming back for separate motions. Moorings, Commercial Yacht Club, currently 90, proposed 140. Commercial Boatyard, currently 175, proposed 225. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Slips and wharfage, July 1 to August 31. Greater than 71 feet, 275 per foot, proposed 350 per foot. Less than 71 feet is 275 a foot, proposed $3 per foot. 50 amp cord, 220 volts, currently $30 a day, proposed $40 a day. 100 amp cord, currently $75 a day, proposed $90 a day. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Main Marina and Davis Floats, resident, $152 per foot, proposed $154 per foot. Non-resident is $175 per foot, proposed is $177 per foot. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Charter boat section, resident, $147 per foot, proposed $150 per foot. Non-resident, $170 per foot, proposed $173 per foot. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Green Pond, resident, $138 per foot, proposed $140. Non-resident, $159 per foot, proposed $161. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Seasonal power charges, 30 amp, 110 volts, all other, $250 per season, proposed $300 per season. 50 amps, 220 volts, currently $750 per season, proposed $850. 100 amp per cord, $1,750 per season, proposed $1,950 per season. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Simpson's Landing, per month, $200, to be deleted. Fueling truck yearly is $1,000, to be raised to $2,500. Questions or comments from the public? From the board? Tides Bulkhead, per month, $200, to be deleted. Fueling truck yearly, $1,000, to be raised to $2,500. Questions or comments from the public? From the board?
Should we deal these as one unit because they're...
Yeah, animal control is a little bit different, so any questions, any general discussion from the board about this? Do we want to have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I just need to ask one question. It might not be now, but I thought we were going to try to add in a fee for the pilot program. It's not on these fees, whether we were going to advertise it separately for the future?
Is that going to be forthcoming, or?
I did send that over, but I think you're covered by the private mooring fee that's already in place, because we would be charging the same amount.
So it would be charged twice, though, right?
It would be
Okay.
to the current
Okay.
permit holder, and somebody off the wait list would be paying the normal fee.
Okay.
I think we could also, if we needed to, bring that back, so perhaps we'll have some further discussion, just to make sure that we're covered. Perhaps town council can verify that.
Right, I don't want to see that get screwed up.
Yeah. I would note to the board that the proposed increases here are less than what the Capital Advisory Committee recommended. And if you may recall, the discussion 2 weeks ago was that the recommended increases are less because they wanted to take a more incremental approach. as opposed to a drastic increase this year, so. I would recommend that we move these.
I move approval of the increases as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Animal control, pickup fee, subsequent time in the same calendar year, currently none, proposed to be $35. Care and custody fee, subsequent time in the same calendar year, currently none, proposed $25. Questions or comments from the public? From the board?
I move approval of the two fees of $35 and $25.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Recreation Department, Youth Summer Playground Camp and Teen Camp. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. is $140 for 2 weeks, proposed $150 for 2 weeks. 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. is $160 for 2 weeks, proposed $175 for 2 weeks. Questions or comments from the public?
Can I just ask one question? There was the one fee that we didn't mention under the shellfish, which is the new commercial student.
Oh, that's not in our list.
Are you missing the last page where it starts with neutered male dog?
We don't have that.
We don't have that either. That was not advertised.
That was the fee proposed by Chuck when we set up the caps on the commercial moorings. He wanted, the commercial shellfishing, he wanted to be able to still give out permits to the student of the commercial, as you remember. And so that was a brand new fee that was proposed for at $150. I guess we'll have to check.
We'll
with
have
the
to
town manager's
advertise
office
that.
to see if that was actually advertised or not. I don't know.
It's not in the copy of the advertisement that we have here, so we'll have to advertise those and come back to do that, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. All right, the Recreation Department increases in the Youth Summer Playground Camp, the Teen Camp. Any questions or comments from the public?
Malcolm Donald, Precinct 6. I have a follow-up to my other question. Why are the fees going up faster than their incomes?
I cannot confirm or deny that these fees are going up faster than anyone's incomes, Mr. Donald. So, do you have a question or comment on the fees?
Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments from the board?
I think on this, I think that as far as this one is concerned, that possibly it does make a difference in a family, another $10 with 2 or 3 children. But I do know there are scholarships that are available, and there are organizations within the town that do take care of children. There's no one from Recreation Department here, so I do think about this one with the teen camp. I think it's a very good place for them to be able to go to in the summertime. So I would be more in favor of not making a change on that.
It's worth noting also that that $10 fee, I'm not sure when it was last increased. So the suggestion that it's going up faster than the rate of someone's income may or may not be true. The question is do we want to accept the recommendations that have been provided to us based on the information that we have this evening? So,
I know it was not increased last year.
I would move approval.
we have a motion to approve.
Second.
And a second.
I know that these camps are full all the time.
Yes.
There's
yes,
a wait
they are.
list for them.
Yes, it is. It's very popular. No, they're not looking for more.
Right.
They are. They're very popular.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Historic Districts Commission, certificates of appropriateness, applications requiring a public hearing, currently none, proposed $25. Applications for sign hearings, currently none, proposed $10. Questions or comments from the public? From the board?
I move approval of the Historic Districts Commission's fees.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the fees. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Unanimous. So with the exception of the ambulance rates and the parking fees for Bristol Beach, these were all passed. That brings us to application for a change of manager. It's an all-alcoholic club license, Green Pond Yacht Club, 366 Minot Road, East Falmouth. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to disclose that I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. This is not an official public hearing. These are usually routine. Mr. Jones, do we have any recommendations?
We have received from Brian Reed that done a query check on Ms. Jarvis. The department has no problem with the request.
I move approval of the change of manager.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the change of manager. Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, questions or comments from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. The next item on our agenda is an application for change of manager of an all-alcoholic club license, the Falmouth Rod and Gun Club, 203 Carriage Shop Road in East Falmouth. Is the applicant or the applicant's representative here?
Mr. Chairman, disclosure, I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license.
As noted, this is generally routine. I don't know if the board has any questions, seeing as we have...
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. As you well know, I'm here tonight for your approval of a managerial change in the club license.
Could you identify yourself for the record,
I'm sorry.
please?
My name's Kevin Narbonne.
Thank you.
I'm here for you tonight for managerial change for the club license associated with the Falmouth Rod and Gun Club.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I move approval of the
Second.
change of manager.
We do not have the query check.
There is a copy here.
Okay.
Again, from Brian Reed, conducted the query check, no problem with the request. Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, hearing none, we have the motion and the second. Any last questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Congratulations. Next item on our agenda, new common victualler license, Cape Cod Burgers and Fries, 420 East Falmouth Highway, East Falmouth. The applicant or the applicant's representative present? Does the board have any questions?
Yes. Could someone give me a little better location where Harpon Road in East Falmouth?
That's the home address?
Yeah, Fisherman's, Tarpon Road is in Fisherman's Cove. I think that would be the home address.
Okay.
This is at 420 East Falmouth Highway, which... thank you. Yeah, that's in the Town and Country Shops where the burrito place used to be. And I don't have a recommendation here. We do have an email from the office, new license request. They would like to open next Tuesday, but we don't have a recommendation from the police department.
This is just a common victualler, though.
Yeah.
We don't, usually, we just get they have to get approval from the health department.
Correct.
So maybe we could condition it on the approval from the health department, because that's all they need.
So make a motion that we approve with the positive from the Board of Health.
Okay.
Second?
Motion and a second to approve it contingent upon Board of Health approval. Any questions or comments from the public? From the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. All right, second-hand dealer's license. Anelia's, I hope I get, Anella. Agnella. Okay, I apologize, I'm not always good with names.
Everyone will know it.
Agnella's Attic Treasures, 460 Wacoit Highway, East Falmouth. The applicant, I presume.
Yes. Dolores Covington.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board?
No, but the building commissioner says that you will need to get a certificate of occupancy. You're probably aware of that?
Yes, I am.
I have a question. Either the last year or 2 years ago, the police department developed a whole new procedure for secondhand dealer's license. Have you had a chance to review that with the police chief, or at least to go over what the requirements are for?
I did hear a lot about, but it was from the building department, it wasn't from the police chief.
There are specific reporting requirements that you may want to speak with the police about, just to make sure that you understand them. Do we have any other recommendations?
Brian Reed from the police department has no problems with the request.
Okay.
So I make a motion to approve, subject to an occupancy permit from the building department.
Yes.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the public? Last questions or comments from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. All right. Next on our agenda, the committee handbook. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank, let's see, oops, excuse me. I'd like to thank Matt McNamara, the chair of the ZBA, for his input previously and again. I honestly have not had a chance to look at this particular draft. I don't know if we've incorporated any of the more recent suggestions, but it does incorporate some of the earlier suggestions, including making some of the, for example, making the open meeting law part of the appendix so that it can be more easily changed if there are changes to the law.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that we bring this back to another meeting so that we can finalize all that and then actually have the, I know that we have the information that the chairman of the ZBA provided, but I don't have that with me tonight, so we sent it by email, I think.
Okay.
And I think if we dedicated maybe another 15 or 20 minutes one evening to it, we could get it completed in one night. That's what I
Do we
think.
want to go with that? I do recall that we had talked about trying to get this out to all the boards, committees, commissions. Do we want to go in that direction, or do we want to say, okay, we've got a draft here, we want to submit it to the boards, committees, commissions, and come back for revisions if necessary?
We haven't submitted this out to the board?
This has been provided to all of the committee chairs, and we did ask them to share it with their committees for feedback. The ZBA did that for us. I don't know that any other committee chairs have provided any other feedback. It could be the assumption that no news is good news, or that they had not had the opportunity yet to discuss it.
Well, we gave them we had a 30-day period, as I believe, and I think some of them only meet once a month. So maybe they may have met, but they haven't gotten their material together, or some may have not even met. Maybe we should give them another two to 3 weeks to get it back to us.
Well, I think we're beating a horse on this one, too. You know, I mean, sooner or later, we're going to come out with the policy. Could be subject to change.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. I mean,
I think there's also the additional information about the online posting policy.
That's
I
right.
think as I read through that, I think there needs to be a lengthy discussion on that.
Paula Lichter is here, and she did send that information to us and asked that that be included, so.
Thank you for reminding me of that. And I did speak with Ms. Lichter and noted that, as with the appendices regarding the open meeting law and the conflict of interest law, we could include the the online posting policy as part of it as an appendix. Let me just check here. I don't know if that was included yet, or if it's something we need to, I think it's something we'll need to add to this.
You know what, maybe we want to add our speaker policy there and ask each committee
policy as well,
to make sure that they abide by that speaker policy.
I'll be glad to take this on and put it all together and put all those things together and bring it back if you want.
Second.
Be careful what you volunteer for.
I'm used to writing policies. It's been a lot of years.
All right, well, so we're on the same page, and so we do move this along. So what we have here, I'm looking at this, and we don't have in here the online
We
posting
want
policy.
speakers.
Oh,
It's in here, the online is in this packet here.
But I like the idea of that being an appendix.
Yeah, and having
speaker-
an appendix with
and
the
speaker
online, the
policy.
AG, the speaker's policy, and maybe,
The online posting policy?
yeah,
Yes, it
it's
is.
here
It's
in
toward
our
the
Well,
end.
it's what we just got, but it's not actually in the committee handbook, is it?
It is here. I
I'm
just saw
looking
it.
at the draft that I have, and I don't see it. It may be in here as
As an appendix.
feedback,
It's in here as an appendix.
because, for example, we also have some comments here, yes,
There
and
it is,
actually,
right
this
here.
is, I don't think that's intended as an appendix, thank you so much.
no?
It is in here. As I look at this,
It's in the packet of information we have, but it's not a part of
yes,
the committee handbook.
and that's what, if you notice, for example, and this is not numbered, but, or it is, excuse me, it is numbered. Page 22, up till page 22, you notice the typeface. This is the actual handbook. And then on the next page, we have an email from Mr. Wasdorp. I'll also thank him for his feedback as well. We do appreciate that. So we have the feedback from Mr. Wasdorp in here. There's also the feedback from Ms. Lichter, which does include a copy of the online posting policy, and that's what you did see. And I don't see the most recent feedback from Mr. McNamara. So I think if we want to proceed with this, we have copies of these already, but thank you. Does anyone need another copy of the online posting policy? It is in our packet, so we do have that. I think the two things we want to do is add the online posting policy and the speaker's policy to the appendices. Are there any other policies relevant to this handbook that we're going to need to add? I think that's one of the things we need to consider. And then, of course, there's the feedback from Mr. McNamara and Mr. Wasdorp that we're going to want to look at and determine if we want to include that.
We could add the committee appointment policy as an appendix, so,
That's a good idea.
you know, so people who are reading the handbook know how you get on a committee.
Okay.
Be nice to put them all in one place.
Mhm. All right, so you have volunteered, and I
I
think been
have.
nominated as well, so we've covered
Well, I
both bases.
did one in a week, so that's pretty good. I will
You
get
did
this
what?
one done in a week.
You're the new policy.
I'm on the policy road now.
Mr. McNamara has a question.
Mr. McNamara? And then Ms. Lichter.
Thank you. I would encourage you not to make your speaker's policy mandatory for all of the committees. For two reasons. I think many of the committees are very much on an informal basis, and chairman can really address those issues. For the Zoning Board of Appeals, our policies, and you may note, are actually part of the code, the town code.
Mm-hmm.
It's under Chapter 310. So we've gone through a whole lot of procedures to get those policies established, which includes much of what you have here, and in fact, you may have reflected upon ours when you created yours. Certainly, maybe it could be advisory for some of the boards, whereas many of the things such as the open meeting law, conflict of interest, I think the online posting, those things surely should be mandatory, but I think how actually to run a particular meeting, depending on the level of public, involvement, should be probably left up to the various boards. Now, I know it's just a draft that Pat will come up with, but I think as you're adding all of these on, it can be somewhat overwhelming to small committees, or small committees that are advisory that meet only monthly, and it may not need to be so technical. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Lichter?
Hi, thank you. My name is Paula Lichter, and I live in the Heights, and I run an email organization called Harbor Watch, which has 167 members who follow news about Falmouth Inner Harbor. I'm also the vice president of the Falmouth Heights Mira Vista Improvement Association, which I'm not here officially representing tonight. So tonight I'm here just for myself and Harbor Watch. And if it's okay with you, I would like to read a prepared statement, mostly because the online posting policy hasn't been discussed in the public for a couple of years, and I'd like to just educate the people who are watching this meeting on TV about the issue.
That
May I
falls
take 4
outside,
minutes?
but it falls outside the scope of what we have posted here, which is a discussion of the committee handbook.
Committee handbook.
Right, but even if we add that as an appendix, the discussion of the online posting policy is not really on the agenda. It's whether we include it or whether
Gotcha.
we don't.
Okay.
It is duly noted, and one of the things, and I don't know if you heard, as I mentioned earlier, and it was discussed or it was presented to town meeting, that this board has this year, one of the things we want to do is look at our oversight and management of the committees, commissions, boards that we appoint. This is one of the issues that will likely come up in terms of making sure that the chairs of the various committees have the ability to adhere to this and other policies. And the committee handbook is just the first step in this direction, so.
Okay. Then I have just one comment and one question. The question then is, there were a few things that have come up since you adopted the online posting policy that need to be addressed. Who should I talk to about that? Additions to there are some problems that have come up since then that we didn't address.
So you're suggesting changes to the policy?
Well, or at least just something that is added to the general handbook. It doesn't necessarily have to change the policy if it's put in a paragraph in the handbook. When you mention in the handbook that it's an appendix.
Well, if you'd like to perhaps bring that to Ms. Flynn, or just
Okay.
direct it to the entire board, send an email to the selectmen at falmouth.mass.us.
Okay.
Ms. Flynn will get it, the rest of the board will get it. We'll try to make sure that it's considered and added.
All right, great. And then my comment is that I know on page 1 that you thank volunteers for their contribution of time and thoughtful consideration. This is from the handbook, of the many issues and challenges confronting the town, that they're greatly appreciated. And while this is true, I know that they're really, really appreciated. And we all know that most of our committee members are volunteers and receive no remuneration. In fact, some take on responsibilities akin to a second job. So given our form of government, a lot of work wouldn't happen without these volunteers. I don't have any specific language to suggest, but I think a much stronger thank you is warranted. Let me just make sure I didn't have anything else. No, it was just what got left out of the handbook that I'll email to you. Thank you.
Thank you. One last comment.
I left out of the online posting policy, not left out of the handbook.
Oh. Ms. Hayward.
Nancy Hayward, I am a member of the Falmouth Historical Commission. I gather this draft committee handbook has been distributed. Has it been distributed to chairmen of committees and commissions?
Our understanding is that we did direct it to be distributed to the chairs of the various committees, commissions, boards that we appoint, with the expectation that they would reach out to their committee members for feedback. So if you haven't seen it yet, that may go to what was just discussed, that perhaps there was not enough time for some of these commissions to review this, so.
Thank you. I hadn't heard of it, and I know it's not on our agenda for Wednesday, so
Okay.
thank you.
Mark Cool, Precinct 6. My question to the board would be, with regard to the draft and its solicitation of chairmen of various departments and committees, the composition of the majority of the volunteer commissions and boards are residents. And I was wondering if the board considered or have gone out to solicit input from those potential volunteers of context of the committee handbook.
Other than reaching out to the chairs, submitting this to them with the expectation that they share it with their committees for feedback, no.
I believe it's posted online.
It is
It is available
It is
online,
posted
yes.
online.
It has been for several
And this
weeks.
process started 3 or 4 years ago, right? And this is finally now getting a draft back
We've got a lot more steam now, but it did begin several years ago, yes.
with, I think, input from a wide variety of sources at that point. And now we're just trying to actually fine-tune a draft that we've been working on.
My suggestion, so as to incite volunteerism, which I'm certain the board is for, to incite the volunteerism, you have to welcome an input from those potential candidates that would be on committees and boards. And so I would suggest strongly the board go beyond simply posting and go out and make an extra effort, because that's how you're going to gain further volunteerism. And based on that volunteerism, the premise of whether people volunteer or not is going to be written in that committee handbook. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask, Mr. Cole, what's your suggestion on how to do that? I mean,
Just like, you know, and I know Sari Boudreau, on the zoning board administrator, tries to do her best to urge potential candidates for the zoning board through the media and advertisements. But I think it might behoove the board to consider that, given the importance of a committee handbook for those potential volunteers, that they know full well what they're getting into. And so if something were to be done in the venue of the general media, more than just publicizing it on the town link, I think you would probably get more of an interest and hopefully more volunteerism to participate in our grand citizen government. So, yes.
Do you know how many volunteer organizations there are in the town of Falmouth?
I don't.
Well, it's 67. And I think that's a commendable number to keep all of them going.
Oh.
And I do absolutely respect anyone that steps forward and volunteers. But you've got a very good point in saying maybe we can go just a little bit further and try something different.
Especially for town government. And I fully appreciate that comment. And I think what makes the town better is more participation. And I thank you for stepping up last year. But I think it takes more than 10% or 5% of the populace of the town to truly gain the benefit of what potentially exists in this town. And that's what's necessary, and that's what we have to urge. So that's that.
Thank you.
Paula Lichter, different issue. I'm always amazed when I watch interviews for people who want to become a committee member, that one of you on the board will ask, have you been to the committee? And I don't know how many times I've heard no. It just astounds me that someone would want to be on a committee and never visit that committee. So there's nothing in the handbook that says that you must visit a committee before applying for the job, but
Perhaps we should include something in there suggesting it.
I would think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think it should be a requirement. I think it would be, surely, as Mr. Cool says, people should know what they're getting into, because that's one of the big things.
All right, so we've got some suggestions. Okay. Do we want to bring this back on a date certain? 2 weeks, 4 weeks?
4 weeks. Is that too far?
No.
2 weeks?
No.
4.
4.
4 weeks.
Yeah, well, 4.
After all,
if I
Pat's
get it-
doing it, so.
What?
November 16th? December 16th?
Yeah, that's good. December 16th.
Okay.
Get it done this year.
Due date.
All right. I don't think we need to take any other action at this point. Okay. Next item on our agenda. The report from the town manager regarding town hall space analysis. Mr. Suso. And actually, if I may preface this discussion, Mr. Suso asked that we put this on our agenda so that he can inform the board as to what's going on. He could probably better describe what he's looking for from us, but I did remind him that the board doesn't need to act on any of this, that it is not within our purview to decide which department it goes in which office. That, as Mr. Murphy pointed out earlier, falls under the day-to-day management of the town, and I don't think any of us have the kind of expertise necessary to decide which department should be sitting where or who needs what space. But Mr. Suso did want to get a vote of confidence, if you will, from the board, so that it's understood by some of the committees, commissions, and boards that we appoint that we're not going to be meddling in day-to-day affairs, and it's going to be a decision made by the town manager's office and not by a committee which is appointed by us. So, did I represent that accurately, Mr.
Certainly,
Suso?
thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. I should note that, thank you, Selectman Moffett. I should note that the board, of course, has received some information on this in the past, and as you well know, have embarked on this process as a result of the board's overall request, covering several areas. One, the directive to bring town offices that are currently in rented space into town-owned buildings, and there are 2 of those currently, which we've recounted in the past, and also to continue my work as town manager on the board's behalf to further consolidate and enhance the efficiency of town offices and departments, and that's a process we've been involved in the last couple of years and is still underway. And as the board's aware, we also had a one-page summary at the recent town meeting that came out of an inquiry on the proposed capital set-aside, which town meeting approved, of $250,000 in furtherance of taking a first step in this process. So I have a 2 or 3 page PowerPoint here, and I'll just jump on the button. And this is conceptual, of course. Again, these PowerPoints are dealing with Town Hall. This is suggested that the floor number 1, or the ground floor as we would call it, would include conceptually those offices that I describe as permitting, planning, and preservation, so that residents, unlike residents and businesses partaking or needing to partake of the permitting process rather than having to dance up and down the floors of Town Hall, can be a one-stop shop on the ground floor of Town Hall. The one exception would be permits issued by the engineering portion of Public Works, and those, of course, are on Gifford Street. But this would accomplish that end. And moving on to floor 2, the floor we're currently on, you see the conceptual assortment of offices that would make up this floor. Again, the exact layout would be yet to unfold and yet to come. And finally, the top floor of this building, or floor 3, including those functions noted on the sketch here: financial services, information technology, which is there currently, conference space, which would, in my judgment, be necessary to replace the conference, the main conference meeting room, what's normally called the civil defense room, in the ground floor. Currently, and town council's office anticipated to be relocated to the 3rd floor space as well. Again, exact layout where desks would go, and as I noted at town meeting, where lamps would be plugged in. That's yet to come. I don't have a PowerPoint on it, but as the board's aware, the Marks building is also in play now that that's becoming available to the town, and we do anticipate relocation of the human services function to the main floor in that building, and subject to a review that's currently underway and the board's aware of, and again, was part of your summary of actions earlier this evening, is potentially a consolidated town dispatch function, police, fire, public works, and other safety-related dispatch needs would be potentially consolidated to the upper floor of the Marks building. We've also noted that the intent would be to consolidate off-premise record storage to an appropriate location in the Gus Canty Recreation Building. Again, that would be subject to finalizing the layout and space. Those records that are mandatory to be kept on site would be continued to do that, but this is longer-term record storage that's not needed within Town Hall, for instance, which is intended to be primarily an office building and not a record storage facility. So that's the concept. And I do also want to thank Heather Harper and Denise Coleman. They have served to have a discussion and meeting with all the affected town departments here, not only Town Hall, but elsewhere, and have received input, comments, suggestions from all of those. It's been an important process that's taken several months and has resulted in this summary, as well as proposal, as I've noted, that's already gone to town meeting and been approved by this board and town meeting most recently last week, and other elements would be forthcoming in the proposed FY15 budget, which the board will be seeing, and I have due to you via the charter no later than January 1 of the coming year. So we are actively underway with that. And Mr. Chairman, be happy to answer any questions that you or other members of the board would have. I would ask for a sort of a vote of confidence that this is the general direction, and the board would have some comfort in this. Saying that, I do want to underscore that I recognize that human nature being what it is, that some entities prefer the status quo to the kinds of adjustments that I'm recommending to the board. I respect that, but also recognize that at the end of the day, we're in the public service business, and it's about serving the public, and these concepts are coming forward to you in furtherance of that, of our desire to serve the public and work more efficiently as a team and more cost effectively as a team. We owe that to the board and to taxpayers in general, so I bring this to you in that spirit. I would ask for your vote of confidence if you're comfortable with this general direction. Thank you.
I have two questions. On floor 2, I couldn't quite see it, but I assume the selectmen in your office would stay where it is?
Correct. I do not anticipate a change in this meeting room or the location of the selectman or town manager's office.
What timetable do you expect it would take to move from where we are now to what you're envisioning? Is that going to be a close the town hall for 4 weeks or weekend?
We don't have the entire process mapped out as yet. It's a great question, Selectman. Overall, we believe that this is likely to be a 12 to 18 month process minimally, but for the reasons you noted, that certain things have to move sort of like dominoes. and we need to be careful to map that out in a disciplined and meaningful way. We also need to have the dollars to do it. Part of the adjustments in Town Hall are going to be born out of some of what has been voted, thank you to the board and town meeting, with the ESCO that was recently approved, because that would allow some adjustments in the way our HVAC is set up, including in the ground floor of Town Hall, and those relocations are important for two purposes. One, because the some of the HVAC setup is within a flood-prone area and needs to be relocated from a safety standpoint, but those relocations and upgrades, because that equipment is, even though this building seems fairly new to a number of people, a good bit of the HVAC equipment is quite dated, and again, reflective of the fact that some of it's installed in a flood-prone area, which is not a good investment in public dollars. So those relocations would need to occur, and then some reconstruction of the space. And my hope would be that following those, moving forward on that ESCO, and the $250,000 being set aside, would allow us to, as a first step, move some of the offices that are outside in rented space into owned space to be most efficient. But we're going to have to see how that's going to pan out over time. Also, the room below, Selectmen, below this room that we're sitting in, is essentially a file and miscellaneous storage area that was originally intended, by all accounts, for office space, but it's not used for office space. And so we would need to relocate that storage before we could utilize it, and also reconstruct some of it so that desks and also high-tech equipment could be utilized there as well on the ground floor. So it's a multi-step process, and it is unfolding as I speak, and I would look forward to bring further updates to the board on how we see that panning out over time.
Can I ask a question? Do we have any collective bargaining that we have to do for this building before we implement any of that, or?
Given what I understand to date, other than cooperating with affected unions, essentially AFSCME, I don't see it resulting in any change in fundamental working conditions, terms and conditions of employment. In fact, I see it as an enhancement because of the working environment and the cost effectiveness, and also hopefully will make us able to afford union settlements more cost effectively because we are operating more efficiently. So subject only to continuing the dialogue that we have with all in this building, I don't see a particular problem, but it is important, and we will continue to communicate. In other buildings, it will be a little bit more of a challenge, particularly in the Marks building, and with dispatch, we've talked about that a little bit, and that is a process that may take a little bit more time. And I should also note, Selectman, and I appreciate your question, that what we brought to town meeting to date is the first step in terms of the dollars that we feel that we'll need. But again, these are one-time investments, and we will have a significant payback from bringing in the two outside departments for which we pay over $50,000 annually being off-site in rented property. So there will be a reasonable return over time to that as well.
I just want to make a comment that former Selectman Braga, this would have been a great night for him, because the committee handbook is coming to fruition, and the change in space allocation, specifically bringing town council into the building. I know that we've spoken about this on many occasions at our retreats, about trying to reorganize government, make it more efficient, and I think it's a great first step. I'm sure that not everyone is going to be thrilled, because change sometimes is hard for folks, but.
Ms. Moffett?
I have a few questions. What about any additional space at the DPW building? I mean, is that, have you looked into that, or I assume you have?
We've recognized, yeah, it's a great question. We've recognized there is some additional space there, given the way that building was laid out. One of the things we've attempted to do is maintain offices within Town Hall to the maximum extent we can, rather than relocate them to a new building. The one exception to that, as we've noted, is Human Services. And Human Services, because of its basic nature, we believe is best positioned really in a standalone location, so that it's the clients that are served are not needing, for instance, to be entering through Public Works or another companion building. And so we would meet that standard by putting it in the Marks building, for instance. But beyond that, we believe we have sufficient space here, if properly utilized, to accommodate the needs that we've outlined. It is possible that Public Works could serve as a secondary location for other storage needs that we've talked about, and other support. And I would defer to Heather if she has any other comments that may have come up in the review that she and Denise conducted.
The only additional comments I have about the Public Works facility is the parking and the interaction with the heavy equipment, and that was a real limiting issue related to most of the uses that Town Hall or other governmental services generate a lot of traffic, and that was a very limiting factor there.
I have a second question. I do think that the office where the town manager and assistant town manager are located, including their two assistants, needs some reconstruction of walls. My term would have been, are you going to take some walls down? Your term was, there's going to be a reconstruction of space. And I would look at that corner down there and think how many people in this town are in the office of the town manager. And to me, there needs to be more space in that reconstruction of walls.
I'm certainly, Selectman Moffett, I'm certainly happy to look into that. We're not ruling any of that out, and I'm glad you brought up that particular phrase, because as Heather is certainly aware, we've had multiple discussions about the fact that in Town Hall in general, some walls need to be removed. There are too many occasions where walls are demarcating certain town offices and keeping them from cooperating, serving the public as well as they might, and cooperating as a team as effectively as they may. And we certainly anticipate being guided by that in the ground floor layout that I've spoken about. And again, I don't have the details to talk about because we recognize that our funds are going to be limited to go forward on it. And this may be something that ultimately over time would be a multi-phase process and a work in progress. But your point's well made about limitations in the office area that happens to serve selectmen and town manager's office. And we won't, while we don't anticipate major changes, we will not rule that out either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I would move to give a vote of confidence to the town manager in pursuing the reallocation of space in town hall.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second.
With appreciation.
I'll give the public the opportunity. Anyone has any questions or comments about this? Ms. Hayward? Ms. Moffett, could we get the lights?
While we wait for Ms. Hayward to come up, can you put a copy of the planned layout to the board's box so that we have an idea of
certainly
what those three slides were?
Happy to.
Nancy Hayward, Precinct 5, I'm the Vice Chair of the Falmouth Historical Commission. I made some comments on town floor relating to this. I have no idea if anybody was listening to what I said. Those comments still hold. And there are some other comments. I know about some historical town documents that are in the basement. Hopefully, someone else knows they're there. And I understand that this is not going to happen instantaneously, Mentally, I'm thinking about how many emails I need to send out about various things, and I'm very aware that Thanksgiving is coming. I'm certainly going to be here this week, but I'm going to be gone for a week. How my question sort of to maybe other people who don't quite know what their spaces are going to evolve into. I would say that perhaps the lines of communication in the Falmouth Historical Commission may not be as effective as they are in some other committees or commissions. I would like to be informed about anything relating to any of the spaces that the Historical Commission has occupied. And I don't know, since I'm not the chairman, whether I will know about those things. I would like to have some suggestions here or later, after perhaps this has been thought about, how I can deal with this. And if everybody is deciding, well, this lady is really getting to be terribly annoying, I will tell you that I will be gone after June 2014, because I will be, good heavens, help me with my word, for I will be term limited. Thank you. So.
Well, Nancy, it's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you.
And as far as any records go, I'm sure that the town manager's office is going to maintain some catalog. And Ms. Harper, do you have anything to add with that? Or?
No, I welcome any feedback that you have, Nancy, on any of your thoughts.
Thank you.
We're very much aware of the files at the Edward Marks building, as well as the records in the file storage facility. So we know they exist. And
All
you,
right,
the commission will be
I'll ask you about
consulted.
one particular
Okay,
closet.
please do.
This is, as the town manager noted, it's an ongoing process, and there's obviously, especially with respect to records, there's going to be a need to make sure that they're cataloged and properly organized, so that when they are moved to the new location, that nothing is lost and everyone knows how to access them if they do need to get a hold of them. So feedback that you can provide, if you know of where records are, then perhaps you could provide that. That way the town manager's office can cross-reference that with their own records, make sure they haven't forgotten everything, or anything, excuse me. And hopefully all of the committees, commissions, ZBA, historic districts, any board, commission, or committee that works with ongoing records, that they're all going to, I think, follow the same process to make sure that nothing gets lost and everything is maintained in an orderly fashion. So hopefully that addresses some of your concerns.
Yes.
Good. Any other questions or comments from the public? Mr. Thrasher.
Quick question in regards to the Edwin Marks.
Scott Thrasher. Thank you.
In regard to the Edwin Marks building being used for combined public safety dispatch, I just want to make sure I understand correctly that right now we have approval to investigate the combination of dispatch. So that's one part of a proposal, but we're waiting to hear back about the feasibility of combining the dispatch, police, and fire, or is that?
That's being studied?
That's being studied.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
The use, we're talking about use of the Edwin Marks building, second floor, for combined police and fire dispatch.
That's one possibility, yes.
That's a possibility. So, but my question is that's on the table, but we're still waiting. We're doing a study into the feasibility of combining the two and how it's going to work.
We're significantly into that, correct.
Okay. And who's doing the study?
We'll be working with the unions involved. They've both been, we've had discussions about this already, including with the police and fire chiefs. We don't have a study, quote unquote,
per se that I'm suggesting is going to be brought forward. I will tell you that, and as has been announced earlier by Representative David Vieira, $50,000 in funds, as Ms. Representative has announced, has been earmarked at the state level to assist us in our efforts. And here this evening, the board authorized our pursuing a request for a CIC grant to help us review that. Those things are not mandatory to demonstrate the efficiency of this concept, because it's been done in many other places. But this board did vote to authorize that to proceed, if I'm understanding your question.
Right. I understand. I was wondering what the CIC grant stood for, because I saw that in the minutes, but what the CIC grant stand for?
It's Community Innovation, Community Innovation Challenge Grant.
Community Innovation and Challenge. Okay, that was another question I had. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Any last ones from the board? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to support the town manager's proposal here of a vote of confidence.
Go team.
Any last discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the 2014 annual license renewals. We'll be seeing a number of these over the coming weeks. We'll go group by group. We'll need to approve these license renewals. If anyone wants to hold them for any reason, or if they believe we need to take
Mr. Chairman,
further
before we get going, maybe I'll do a blanket disclosure, because I am the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license. So that would be under the all-alcoholic club licenses, all-alcoholic restaurant license, and the all-alcoholic inn holders licenses that I would need to make my disclosure for. Thank you, as well as the wine and malt restaurant licenses. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All right, so the all-alcoholic retail package store licensees. We have a motion to approve renewals.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All-alcoholic club licensees.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Approved. All-alcohol restaurant license.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? All alcoholic inn holders licenses.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? It's unanimous. Wine and malt restaurant licensees.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. On page 2, the wine and malt package store licensees.
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Common victualler's license.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Inn holders licenses.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Automatic amusement device license.
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Page 3, the entertainment licenses.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Hold on, I'm just looking at these. Okay, motion and a second. Yes.
I guess we continue, no, that's fine. I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. So for the entertainment licenses, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Sunday entertainment licenses.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Movie theater entertainment license.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Class 2 used car dealership licenses.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Limousine licenses.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. And finally, the taxi license.
Move approval.
Any discussion?
Second.
Let's see, motion and a second, thank you. Discussion.
Is there just one taxi license that needs to be issued at this time?
At this time, yes.
At
There
this
are,
time.
there are other licensees, and we'll be receiving it in later, the coming meetings before the end of the year. We should be able to get through all of the license renewals.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. All right. Individual selectmen's reports. Anything you wish to share?
I have 3 items. One is maybe just to handle the calendar for the upcoming year. You want to do that as part of this report? It just, as I looked at the calendar, it looks like January, we could do first, second, and fourth Mondays, which I think might be needed in that month. Otherwise, if we switch to the second and fourth Mondays all the way until May, it actually works better with our holidays. So that for January, February, March, and April, if we schedule the second and fourth Mondays in addition to January 6th, that at least gets us for the next few months, being our general policy.
February, March, and April.
We're all in agreement with
First, what are the, first and third, did you say?
Second and fourth.
Second and fourth.
Instead of the first and third, which is what we have been doing.
So January through May, we'll meet on the second and fourth Mondays of every month.
January through April.
January through April.
Yeah, May
Through
goes
April.
back to.
Okay.
And you suggested an extra meeting on the 6th, because it's budget time.
We
budget
will
time.
likely have to have a meeting on the 6th,
Yeah,
yes.
we'll have not have met since December 16th.
Right, so,
So January, and in fact, some of the coming months, as we get into this next year, some of the coming months, we're going to have 3 meetings. We have some workshops that we need to schedule, and most notably in January, we have the budget process, which is going to require at least 1 additional meeting, if not 2, in order to meet the requirements there. So we're going to have some work to do.
My second item I wanted to do was congratulate specifically 4 of our town employees, the town manager, assistant town manager, the finance director, and the director of human hiring personnel for the fantastic job they did at town meeting in answering the town meeting representatives' questions professionally, articulately, in a way that really answered got some things done, and also the behind-the-scenes work to get the ESCO project done in the last 2 weeks. And I really thought that the amount of preparation that was done by the town employees for town meeting was really stupendous, and made things work
Here, here.
much better
Great.
than they have. The third thing is I was at the Woods Hole Community Association meeting, I think with 3 other members of the board, hearing the Steamship Authority's report as to what they are proposing as a new construction to add another slip and to rebuild the facilities down there. And I think that they're moving along fairly quickly, and I think we may need to step in and do what we can to figure out exactly what's happening. And I would be happy to take that on as something else that, and Pat talked to me also, that's an insight she has about what we can do to figure out what's going on and be able to start negotiating with that.
on a side note on that, as most of you know, I own a business in Woods Hole. I'm very active in the Business Association there. Both the Business Association and the officers from the Community Association met today to find out the issues that we agree upon, and have set up a follow-up meeting with Mr. Lamson about the issues that we think need some attention. So they asked that maybe at some point the Board of Selectmen may get involved in that regard. Try to keep two separate issues at that meeting. There was loud and clear that folks didn't like the extreme truck traffic, specifically hazardous materials, but folks don't want to lose sight that right now this project is fast-tracked. So we want to make sure that we worry about this project as well as that, but this is the priority. So Mrs. Flynn mentioned that maybe we'd take a road show someday to go to the vineyards places, so maybe we could divide and conquer and that type of stuff.
I thought that going back to the 90s, when there were a lot of issues regarding the steamship, a lot of issues regarding the traffic on Woods Hole, a lot of these same issues were there in the 90s. And I know, I was on the board then and others, and we spent a lot of time coordinating with the general manager, who at the time was Armand Tabario. We spent a lot of time on the island, talking with the Nantucket and the Vineyard selectmen. We also, Eric Turkington was our state rep at the time. So there was a lot of work, and when as a result of the meeting, Doug and I were just talking about it the other day, because we both happened to be in here at the same time. And I thought how valuable it was to have a couple of selectmen kind of take that on and be the liaison for the board as this process moves forward. And we both kind of thought that we'd be happy to do that if the board wanted to so designate us, to be the liaison, not to take over anything but to really communicate back to the board, because one thing that is due, and we know, is the parking that's north of the terminal, which is town-owned land, and that's a lease. And I remember being around when that lease was negotiated, and that lease expires in 2015. Oh. And I in fact, I had a conversation with Brian Curry today, because he was at the meeting representing the town manager, and we talked about a few different things, and there's like maybe 300 to 400 parking places up there. And so I think, and then, as you know, the steamship is going to be building its parking lots on Thomas Landers Road, because remember the town swapped a parcel of land, and they bought a parcel of land from the Stone family. So they have a capacity, but there is also a capacity where they could do multi-level parking on Thomas Landers Road, which could really reduce the amount of parking down in Woods Hole. So there are a lot of issues here, and the board needs to really be on top of it. So it's going to take a couple of people to do that. So if you want to.
I don't know that this is any of the selectmen's business, so you can just say to me, no, you're out of bounds. I think of all of the things that I went to both meetings on Tuesday and Thursday, that the thing that was the most surprising had nothing to do with the building a new docks there, is the fact that Falmouth, the town of Falmouth, only has 10% of a weighted vote. I think that's incredibly important, and if we're completely off bounds, when you think about Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard are sharing 90% of the vote, and then we come back to the town of Falmouth to be put upon again, I think there needs to be some discussion, but I'm not sure if the selectmen have any place at that table.
Well, actually, we do, because we have a representative that we appoint to the Steamship Authority, and that's Bob Marshall. He is our representative on the governing board. Now, back in the 90s, it was different.
Absolutely.
Well, no, it was just Nantucket and the Vineyard and Falmouth, though they were 3 members to the governing board. Then New Bedford came into the situation, and that meant that the governing regulations, this is all through the legislature, changed the membership because New Bedford was coming into the fold. So New Bedford has 10%, Falmouth has 10%. I think Nantucket has like 40, and
It's
Nantucket
35,
30.
10% to Hyannis.
Oh, that's right, and Hyannis is also a member because they have a terminal in Hyannis. So the makeup of the board has changed. So now there's 5 members instead of 3. They've added 2. And it used to be Hyannis, that's right, Hyannis used to be, well, anyway, so that's true. But, I don't think that, it means that we don't have as much clout as we used to have, but yet we're still a large community, and we have a big stake. And we have also the issue of the Woods Hole Road, which really needs to be, again, addressed. It was attempted back in the 90s to try to do something about it, and it never went anywhere. But I think we have to keep working on it and try to see if we can't get the islands to somehow agree to having their fuel and some of their other goods barged from New Bedford and not just put on the ferries.
Well, I think the other
But
issue
it's a
is
big
if they
hurdle.
develop a casino there. I think that's a major issue for them.
In New Bedford?
No.
Where?
There's some discussion
on
of
the
the
island,
island,
yeah.
the tribe discussing.
Right. Well, anyway.
This whole discussion, though, I mean, we can bring Bob Marshall in and
Well,
have a larger discussion.
He's due to come in anyway, I think,
Yeah.
in January. He usually gives his annual report.
One of the things, and some folks out there might be saying, what does this have to really do with Falmouth? It's just Woods Hole. It has a major impact on this community. But not only that, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Falmouth, and Hyannis, if the steamship were to run in deficit, would affect our tax bills in this community. New Bedford, although they got a vote, they do not get any of the deficits. So in other words, if the steamship were to run in deficit and not be able to, handle their fiduciary responsibilities, the taxpayers in Falmouth would have to make up a portion of that deficit. So that's why this board and the folks in this community need to pay attention to this.
Well, I just want to make another comment about the plan itself. I don't think it was very visionary in terms of, really, Tom Renshaw, and there was another gentleman back there who had been to some kind of a ferry terminal in Sweden, and you probably remember what he had, I don't remember his name.
Brian Von Hertzen.
Yeah, and they had some really excellent comments to make, because if you look at that plan, it's not that different from what it is now.
What it was 50
The
years
third
ago.
one is,
What it was 50 years ago.
Yeah, it's almost, it doesn't show much futuristic transportation. I always thought, too, that if they had a conversation with Tom Kerr, who really knows a whole lot about transportation, that maybe he could advise them on some visionary thoughts. I thought it just lacked any design that even thinks about the future. It's just all kind of the same old.
They were all massive structures with jetways, really, and walkways and things like that really didn't add to the character. So this will continue to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll bring Bob in, and there'll probably be more discussions, no doubt. Any other updates?
That at Coonamessett last Saturday was a fabulous program to honor the veterans, and they had several different speakers, I would say a minimum of 300 people, and they thought they were going to have to open all of the restaurant, and at some point they had people moving, and it really was quite an honor to our veterans, and I was really pleased I was there.
Just wanted to make a couple of comments that a couple of things took place. Number one, Selectman Flynn and I attended the Selectmen and Councils meeting since our last meeting on the 8th, as well as Veterans Day, which was a wonderful turnout. And there were events that were going on all over this community, specifically the breakfast before, which I don't think, I know I wasn't invited, but I wasn't a veteran, but they had a great turnout, as well as on a day that was very chilly, that it was nice to see still the turnout that was there.
Any last updates? Anyone have any questions about the town manager's report?
Mr. Chairman, if I just might, 2 quick comments. I do also want to thank members of town meeting for their strong support in a variety of areas and important initiatives, and I also want to thank all members of this Board of Selectmen for your continuing and steadfast support in these many, many areas, which has been so absolutely critical to the success and the support that we enjoyed here this past week. And And I want to thank Selectman Jones for his kind words as well. Also, I wanted to, Mr. Chairman, wanted to remind all that there will be some, with the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, Town Hall and Town Administrative Offices will be closed on Thursday, November 28th, and Friday, November 29th. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
And since we're not meeting next week, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very
Since we will
much,
not meet
Pat.
until
Indeed.
Thanksgiving, and that includes all of you here and at home.
All right, any correspondence that anyone wants to highlight?
Show on Monday.
That's right, too. Thank you for raising that. I hope you all have had a chance to take a look at the first episode of Behind the Board, the show that...
Episode, I like that word.
It's TV parlance, I guess. I'm going to be hosting that again. We'll be taping a new episode. It'll be live to tape, which means it'll be next Monday live and taped as well for replaying. I've already had Mr. Suso and Mr. Jones on as guinea pigs, so I welcome anyone else who wants to jump in and help out for the next episode here. And I might also reach out to some department heads with Mr. Suso's permission. But looking forward to that, and I'll echo the happy Thanksgiving to all, and we'll see you on the other side of the holiday. And if there's no other business,
Move to adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Any objections?
Does
We are
anybody know
adjourned.
the score of the Patriots game?